right, time being 7 o'clock, this meeting is called to order. Roll call whenever you're ready.
Frank, Hanson,
Here.
Harper,
Here.
Clemish,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Schultz,
Here.
Williams,
Here.
Healy,
Here.
Welch.
Okay, first item is to approve the minutes from the previous meetings. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to said minutes? We'll start with the June 17th minutes, 2019 for the Yankton County Planning and Zoning Committee minutes for a working meeting. All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the June 17th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the next minutes are from the planning regular meeting of 7/9 of 2019. Do we have any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Move approval.
Okay. Motion to approve, any second?
I'll second.
Just pick
At least
one,
we're
they said it
consistent.
unanimously.
I'll use Michael because he doesn't have.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, next are the minutes for the Yankton County Planning and Zoning meeting. That would be a working meeting on 8/29/19. Any additions or corrections to said minutes?
Move to approve minutes of the 8/29/19 meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay. All right, the next one is the meeting of Yankton County Planning and Zoning meeting on 10/4 of 2019. This again would be a working meeting. Oh, no, this is a special meeting. All right. Any additions or corrections to said minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the October 4th, 2019 Planning Commission minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, next set of minutes are the minutes of the 11/12 of 2019 regular planning and zoning meeting. That would be for last month. Any addition or corrections to said minutes?
Move approval.
Okay, there's a blank for the motion. Oh, this is for the other 10-4 minutes. Never mind. Go ahead. So we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, no problem. Okay, motion carried.
That's all the planning commission meeting now, all caught up. All right.
Yep. All right, are there any items to be added to the agenda? Nope. Okay, so can we have an approval of the agenda?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Are there any conflict of interest declarations for this docket for today?
No.
Nope.
Oh.
No. All right, hearing none. Only 2 minutes late. All right. So we can proceed to the first item on the agenda, which is Doug Marquardt. Variance and conditional use. Applicant is requesting to rezone a rural transitional district to a commercial district and a conditional use permit for a truck or equipment terminals. Said property is described as Lot 1 and the north 100 feet of Lot 2 and Jodine's Addition in Section 24, T94 North, Range 56 West, hereinafter referred to as Utica North Township, County of Yankton, State of South Dakota.
Good evening. Mr. Marquardt informed us that he's unable to attend tonight. So this was briefly mentioned at last month's meeting, but I concur with the previous administrator's assessment that this property currently zoned as RT should be rezoned to commercial to become compliant with its intended use for truck or equipment terminals. The question was, as briefly stated last month, is per ordinance section 1809, particularly number 7, before any amendment or petition for rezone is recommended for approval, this planning commission has to make written findings certifying the compliance with the number of conditions, and so until possible future amendment to the ordinance, I guess we need to figure out how you want to handle that.
Are the rezone and CUP separated?
Yes.
Okay, how would the rest of the board feel is if we went forward on the rezone and waited on the CUP until we had a chance to talk to Mr. Marquardt?
Madam
Or-
Chairman,
Yes.
I believe this property is zoned rural transitional right now, and for what he's doing, it's not allowed in rural transitional. so
Right,
we'd
that's why I
have to-
said we could go forward with the rezone.
Yep. That's what I agree with you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think the discussion needs to be what where's that line gonna draw? Where are we gonna rezone? From where to where? Is it, commercial, anywhere else in that area that needs to be rezoned? And I think you spoke, John, at one time that like, when all that went rural transitional, it kind of was a placeholder, if I remember right.
It
We're
was
not
kind of the
sure
way we
what's
did it,
gonna
of stuff
develop
that we really, because at that time, there wasn't really too much there other than a restaurant and, the
gas
idea of rural
station.
transitional was for people to be able to come in and get the property rezoned to what they wanted, that it would transition into different things. I don't think we've seen a huge amount of it, but, I'm guessing for what he's doing, that's what he's gonna need to do, because some of the things he wants to do probably won't be allowed in rural transitional as it stands. And the reason they're not allowed is because we want you to rezone it into what it should be.
So I think this discussion needs to probably start, what do we feel that area needs to be rezoned to? I know he's requesting commercial, I think that makes sense, but
Yeah.
we need to have that discussion, and then to answer Mr. Bitter's question, how we wanna handle, is it 7?
1809, number 7.
18097. This essentially is a change to the ordinance, so we need to follow all of 1809, and this 7 kind of goes through the checklist we talked about with accessory structures when we discussed that. And if I remember right, we just kind of, the board went through it and then somebody took notes on this, I think.
Yeah, it's all of the changes that we suggested are in the minutes we just approved.
Right.
John or Dennis, did you guys have you guys done a rezone before, or were they done?
There were some done when we were there. Usually the way that most of these get answered is the person that's doing a rezone comes in with a project, and you have kind of a drawing of the project, and you can answer a lot of these things based on what they're doing, and things like ingress and egress and refuse areas and all that stuff is all shown on a plan. I don't know how that really applies to what he has now, because a lot of what he has is already there, so you wouldn't be making him necessarily move anything. I think one of the reasons we haven't seen places like Jodine's and other places be willing to come in and rezone to commercial is because our setbacks in commercial are quite large, especially from the road.
Sure.
So, I think they were unwilling to put a setback that large on themselves when they didn't have that before. So that is one of the things we probably need to look at, is those commercial setbacks when those were laid out, when the zoning ordinance was put together. We were looking at big things and box stores, and to be honest with you, in this day and age, that stuff doesn't really happen anymore,
Well, and part of it, along with what John's saying too, part of the thing was if you're gonna create a commercial district out there, because of the inability to be able to access the highway from several different places, it's kind of like down on Highway 52 corridor down there, where the state is not gonna put a driveway in for everybody to get to the road.
Right.
So then the setback thing becomes a problem, because if the existing structure is there, and you can't get set back from that structure far enough to put a service road in front of the buildings to get out there, then it becomes a problem trying to access the highway from that property.
By the time you had a highway right away and then a service road right away on the inside of that, you'd have to be quite a ways back from the highway to really meet the setbacks that we have.
Right. So in the past, we've discussed, making a light commercial district or something like that might suit this, or did you discuss at all with Markwartz about like a PUD or something?
No, not at this time. And since this had been already through the meeting processes and things, they were just focused on the rezone.
Sure.
I don't know if some of that other property out there, originally when that all got started, when the truck stop was built, and then to the north of that, Fullerton was originally the lumber was originally gonna build there. They own property there, so that property has changed hands kind of off and on through there, who owns it. and what the intent of it being used for has changed on some of it. But then again, you know, you're all, I think, pretty much all familiar with the area there. You also have residential properties right against the road in between other commercial aspects of there, like Airboat Construction is kind of off by itself.
Right.
You've got some of the other things, they've got their own access to the road, but yet you've got residential in the middle of it too, so it becomes a hodgepodge of.
Yeah, depending on how far you wanna go, you can't, you know, and we have that on 52, you know, and that's kind of been one of our thorns, I guess, is, you know, when you've got that commercial strip like that and you've got already existing residential, you kinda need to do a little bit to protect the quality of the existing residential. I mean, people have, you know, a lifetime of savings and value, you know, put into a house out there, and you can't just blanketly go out there and ignore that and put commercial zoning over the top of them. That's gonna hurt them. That's part of why when we've had these, I'm gonna call them arguments, over the last few weeks over commercial on the east side of town and residential that's in commercial in the east side of town, you know, that's the same situation. You can't go in and take a significant portion of the value away of somebody's piece of property to make things better for another piece of property, you know, just without having some concern of what you're doing to people.
Right.
You know, you need to respect the value of the properties that were there and try and make a way that the zoning can allow for other stuff to come in. You know, there's always gonna be some, you know, problems,
It's
you know,
hard not to.
with one against the other. That's always gonna happen, but, you know, you have to me, you know, we have to try and do a little better job than we have been doing of respecting the people that are already there, you know. I don't know how all these would get met, you know, unless they came in and, I guess if you laid out a plan of what's there, you could certainly check some of these off the list, because they're probably, it's just a matter of knowing where they are, you know, utilities, and I don't know, some of it, there won't be any like screening and buffering, I'm assuming they've already got signage. I don't know what other required yards and open spaces they would have to have. I'm sure they have refuse areas, they have, you know, off right-of-way parking, their ingress and egress, I'm sure that is already decided on that specific property. Number one is always, you know, a little tougher to follow all the way through as far as certification of compliance with all ordinances regarding zoning, health, plumbing, and all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of people. And when you have a building project going on, then you know you have licensed contractors there that are keeping track of that. But this is already done, so there's no way we can keep track of that stuff. And I don't, you know, at this point, unless you had a plan there and somebody represented it, I don't know how you would come up with any conditions or anything, or if there isn't any, if there's even any need for any conditions, you know, for any neighboring properties.
I think in that particular piece of property, there's probably an issue there about who owns what. Because I know originally when Marquardt put their structure up there, the road going back to the sale barn and into Double T is owned by the people that own the sale barn. That's not a public
Not
right of
public.
way. And he was using that road and they blocked him off because they got into it or something, and he wasn't allowed to use that road, so they had to put a fence up there. So that'd be, you know, if you're going into moving in that into commercial development out there, that's an issue that has to be resolved somehow to access, you know, to that road. And then if you move the fuel stop into commercial district, you know, that's gonna, I don't, you know, it's where they should be.
Yeah.
But to affect that and the sale barn both, because it's both commercial enterprises, so. But,
I'm wondering if we shouldn't, if we're gonna rezone this, you know, possibly take a look at rezoning everything from there north to the Tabor Road. I know there's a residential in there, but is that the best use of that property? I don't know. But definitely, like you said, is the gas station, it would make
Yeah.
sense to be commercial, you know, commercial property.
that was the original intent even for the rural transitional, we figured along that that highway
Corridor.
corridor there
Sure.
especially, that was eventually, if there was gonna be
Yeah.
expansion, that's where it was gonna be at.
Yeah.
And, you know, the other side of the road, you know, you got Northtown and Farm Credit, you know, that's already, you know, been into the ETJ thing, but they were both farm places
Yeah.
at one time, you know,
Yeah.
not that awful long ago.
Yeah.
So, that is changing there, and that's a pretty big block clear up to the property that the airport owns, and to Arnold's place there.
Yep.
But on the other, you know, beyond the airport property, really, there's no commercial development on the
On
east
the other
of
side,
road.
huh? That's all ag.
And I don't think the line guy's not there on Property Valley anymore, is he? Isn't that private owned now again? I don't know for sure. I
Nelson's,
know for
Nelson's
sure.
on a big chunk of that.
No, I don't know how that, where that ended up.
I don't know either.
But I think what Dan said, up to the Tabor Road, is if you're gonna be looking at doing that, the question is, and I know we talked in the development of this, is not to do just spot zoning here and there, you gotta kinda create a path or a roadway there that's gonna work, but I don't know how, you gotta drag everybody that's property owners along there into it.
That's what I would think, unless that, because there's a little, I don't know, there's half a dozen or something properties there that are residential on the end, and, you know, I wouldn't really be in favor of putting commercial zoning over the top of those properties unless those people want it, especially with the problems we've had with residential and commercial. You know, I would be in favor if the guys were interested that have open property, both north and south of there, to expand it farther. You know, I think that's a smart idea. But I don't see it as a problem to have residential property abutting commercial property as long as it's residential and been residential, because, I mean, Yankton ain't gonna be out there for a long, long time, you
No,
know?
I think
So
in
we're not
this
gonna be,
instance-
we're not gonna be around when
Yeah.
that actual commercial goes on there. You know, we got a lot of infill to go before we get out there with real commercial. So, you know,
Well, and I
there's
think
not
the
the utilities
city
and
is-
infrastructure to support real commercial out there, and not gonna be in the near future.
And it seems like the city's kind of pushing that eastern development,
Right.
you know, off of 50 and Bill Baggs Road in that area. I mean, you never know who's gonna wanna come in this area and do something or what it would be, but we may wanna, you know, discuss, a light commercial or you know, something that includes your truck stops and you know, a transport terminal, which is there, and somehow make that work for residential too. Where you would, you know, the normal operating hours type of thing, and some ways to keep those existing houses protected.
Well, we purposely don't have an industrial in our zoning because there's nowhere county-wise in Yankton that we could support any type of industrial development. We don't have access to the utilities and road structure that it takes outside of the city limits, other than right on the edge of the city limits in the ETJ, to support any kind of real industrial. I mean, the only industrial style development that we've had is Napa, you know, that came in
Well, and
separate on their
It's
own.
kind of big too. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a
he's
lot
in the ETJ.
A lot of, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff.
But he also has problems too, because he doesn't have the sewer and,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, this, to be honest with you, you know, when we set this up, the city, when we talked to the city, they didn't really want us to take and stick some industrial zone where they'd have to run sewer and stuff out
Yeah.
2 miles, and back then we were fighting with BY Water over who's gonna serve territories on the edge of the city. You know, the city wanted to expand and BY didn't want the city coming out into their territory, so it was pretty dicey at that point to think you were gonna service anything, you know, like Sapper or Hydro or whatever it is now and all that kind of stuff.
Electricity's the same
Yeah,
issue.
it's, we just simply didn't have the wherewithal to serve that kind of stuff.
You know, I think redoing this commercial district like we talked about and making it where it'll incorporate a gas station and these, I think that's a better route to go, because any big, large development that's gonna come in is gonna be a conditional use permit anyway. And then that's where we could set the conditions where, hey, you know, if it's a big manufacturing or grain terminal or something that you need bigger setbacks, and then that gives the person flexibility who's building that instead of, you know, like you guys said, most of the big developments, we've only really had one or two, but it really affects the smaller gas stations and truck stops like he has here.
That's what I do think, we could,
Yeah.
we could lighten our commercial,
Yeah.
because we had talked about whether we would have more like a B1 highway business kind of with the commercial instead of the commercial, but at that time, like I said, we were looking at large things to come in. We were trying to keep area for large things to come in, and, you know, that was back in the early 2000, 2001, 2002, that was what you thought would happen, but that's not gonna happen now. It just doesn't, that model isn't out there for businesses anymore. But I could see us lightening up commercial to make it better for commercial and residential to coexist.
What if we just redefine rural transitional?
And you could,
Add some
Some uses to it?
permitted uses or conditional uses to rural transitional, because it's pretty light right now. You can't do a whole lot in rural transitional.
no,
It might work in this scenario, but there are other instances that are things that are rural transitional where you wouldn't want a truck stop and things. I think it's better if we think this is gonna be commercial, I think maybe we'd just better off zoning it to commercial. And the reason I say that is, you know, as Napa keeps growing, that Tabor Road area, I mean, that's gonna be, you know, more of an industrial development type place, I would think. It- You know, of all the rural transitionals, that's probably the one that may take off in, you know, the next decade or two. Some of the rural transitional out by the lake, when you start opening it up. there
Yeah,
are
there's a big
things that
piece
might
out at the
not be
lake that would be
appropriate there.
rural
Really, I mean, you
transitional.
know, like that R2 by the lake that you're at, that really should probably just go to residential, to tell you the truth. But it was more of it was not zoned ag, but that's probably what it was at the time, but it's almost residential now.
Well, and I think they were planning on rural transitional in there so that some
Yep.
businesses that would serve the lake community could be in there.
Yep.
I think was
Would agree.
probably
This
part of
spot
the
that's
reasoning.
commercial right here.
That's Urshman's.
Oh, that's Irishman.
Any more discussion before I ask if the public wants any input on this topic?
One thing, Christie,
Sure.
before, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, modifying the rural transitional thing. But going back to the comprehensive plan, if you read in there when it talked about creating the districts, it said that the purpose of creating the districts was to try to avoid situations where you had conflicting entities building in the same area. And in rural transitional here, you know, the permitted uses, you know, are agriculture, historic sites, horticulture, and utility facilities. And then permitted accessory uses and structures that has home and farm occupations, you know. Basically, it tells you can build houses in, you know, so if you, unless you go and completely change rural transitional and specify that, you know, a deal like Marquardt's thing is available, you know, fits that, then you gotta be careful if he decides to expand that to more of a trucking terminal where the trucks are in and out of there 24/7, you know, year round, and somebody builds a house next to it.
Yeah, that's what I read,
Well, that's-
uses in rural transitional. I don't
Yeah,
make the connection between what Marquardt's doing and something like that with what it says in here. The connection there isn't real clear to me. I think either modify the commercial or maybe another type. But I think it fits more to the commercial side than it does the rural transitional as it's described in the ordinance.
well, absolutely, that's why he's here. I mean, that's why this is
What I'm saying is, I
before
don't
us.
think that I think what Dennis was saying. I'm trying to think what Dennis was saying was, if you would modify the rural transition, it would be a harder stretch
Yeah.
more work to do
Right.
that than it would be to go towards the
just
commercial
re-
side and just.
Right, right. No,
I agree.
I agree,
Just rezone it,
Right.
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
So we basically create another district. Is what you're talking about, is going to a light commercial or something like that?
Well, that's what I'm
Create-
wondering, if it makes more sense if, you know, cause if you look at some of those properties, I mean, you start looking at future setbacks in the commercial,
Yeah.
it might leave some of those properties pretty tough to do anything with.
Well, especially since you have a couple major ones that are already existing out there.
Right.
Without
Right.
any kind of a setback there. I mean, that, between that and the truck stop, and then Markwart's Farm Center there, you know, to the north of that, that could someday turn into, you know, the fuel stop there, you know, other buildings and stuff like that with highway access, that could eventually, you know, not saying tomorrow or the next day, but 10 years from now might be changed to something completely different. Could be a truck repair shop or some kind of a whatever. You know, we don't know that. So I think the clearest path is to create a district to fit.
The area, and not just, well, what we were discussing earlier and what he's discussing now is that maybe we don't want to spot zone this right now. Maybe we need to bring some of the other stakeholders in and discuss it. And maybe create that light commercial district you were discussing rather than acting on this tonight? Is that the feeling I'm getting from you? Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because there, I mean, there are commercial, there's other non-residential businesses in that immediate area, and it would make more sense to do this in a longer-term fashion, and a more logical fashion than each one of them having to come in and ask us for a commercial rezone.
It's probably how Lakeside Commercial came about. I'm
Right.
guessing. You know, it'd be similar, it would be along this corridor.
Yeah.
It'd be something to, likely businesses to be along that stretch.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna ask for some public input now on this topic. If anyone would like to come forward and ask questions or make a statement, now would be the time to do it. Okay, hearing none. I would entertain a motion from the board if the motion is to grant a continuance until we get more stakeholders in here, or
Do we do more discussion, or?
oh, yes, no, more discussion is more than welcome, absolutely.
My thought on that is, for Mr. Marksport, for the applicant to move forward and do what he wants to do, I don't know if we,
Well, he's already doing it.
well, sure, but he's trying to clean up something that sounds like has been going on for quite a while, and he just wants to make sure he's in compliance, which, so do we really want to make him wait? Whether, it doesn't matter what his situation is, he's come in, he's applied, it seems to fit. I don't see any I don't see any roadblocks to him being zoned commercial at this point. So why not just go ahead and take care of his application? If we think that we need to rezone some of these other properties, that's a whole nother ball of wax here. Do we
Yeah.
need to really involve Mr. Marquardt?
Well,
That's
that's my
true.
concern
In that whole
too,
process?
That's true.
is he's held
Or can we
hostage
just-
until this
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Or
that's
can we
true.
just let him move forward?
That's a good point.
I mean, if
Are
we
you
answer the
gonna-
questions in 1809, right, 1809, number 7, just go through the questions, vote, and move on with it.
I agree.
And then, I mean, I just hate to see the applicant, whoever it is, hold up his whole process for something. How long is that gonna take to get the other shareholders in? We don't know what that's gonna involve, or how long it's gonna take. And I hate to see this drag on for, I don't know, how long? For a year, 6 months, a year, 2 years? I don't know how long it's gonna take. Or, where does it end? Where does the process end?
Right.
And Mr. Marquardt, in the meantime, is just kind of wait and see. He's already applied, spent his money. I think he deserves a decision one way or the other.
Well, my understanding here too is this is more than just checking off 1807. I mean, this is a change to the ordinance. So we're talking
Well, yeah, if you're gonna create a
the
light
zoning.
commercial
It's a
district,
change to the
that's a
zoning.
change
To
to
the
the
mo-
zoning.
yeah.
So
I didn't
that's
mean to
gonna
make
take
it
some
sound like it
time.
was that simple.
Right, but I
Follow the
mean,
process here.
Yeah, there's already a fairly lengthy process ahead, I think.
Right.
I guess my one concern about that is going in and spot zoning just this one place. I get, you know, it makes sense what you're saying, Greg, but you know, I guess from what I've heard is, you know, you just don't want to go in and spot zone this and not other properties. I mean, Mr. Marquardt has a property just a little bit to the north that Dennis talked about, that, what is it, some storage for something? I mean, it would almost make sense if he was gonna, you know, do both properties at once. They're both, you know, not really residential. That would both make sense for them to be commercial. I guess I don't know what the
Well,
rest of the
that-
board.
The property to the north actually was not zoned that way, but it was actually commercial because Don Johnson Oil Company was the one that
Okay.
actually developed that site.
Yeah.
And moved his bulk plant and stuff
Yeah.
out of there when they built Kmart. In Yankton there, so.
Then
That was-
Gershner had it for a while.
Then Gershner had it after that, and then Marquardt bought it from him. So-
Well, I mean, and I'm just looking at rural transitional is what he's doing on that other site with his bulk storage. That's, you know, that's not a conditional or permitted use either, you know, I don't know. Gary, what is your recommendation
That's
for
for
us?
farm use. That is-
Right now, it's
Is that what that's for?
Yeah,
Okay,
that
I'm
is not
not-
for
I'm not-
resale. That's
okay.
just for his own farm use.
So I think we talked about him, this was back in the October meeting, was, that was a separate deal. It
Yeah.
was- And you,
Cardboard
Dennis, asked him
farm.
if there was any truck issues, any truck business going on over there. He said, no, it was just for the farm, so.
What's your recommendation on how
Well,
to
I
proceed?
agree. I think my concern is also the length of time it's gonna take to change something in that regard, you know, whether it's waiting until we deal with the comprehensive plan again, doing a rezone that could take months at this point. It seems like this is the fit for this business at this time, and personally, I think it makes sense to move forward on this particular piece of property.
But we'd be going at the conditional use instead of a rezone. Is that?
No, he's talking about doing the
The
rezone.
rezone.
He's talking about doing the
Yeah.
rezone.
Rezone that one piece.
I don't think
of
there
That
is a
one piece.
conditional use in,
Well, he's requesting.
He's
one.
requesting one.
Because there's not a perfect
Is-
answer at this
because
point.
he may be, is this a conditional use after he's in commercial?
No,
This-
because it would probably not be a conditional use if it was
Commercial.
commercial. The truck stuff.
No, it's still listed as a commercial, as a conditional use in the
That's what I was
commercial
thinking.
zoning.
That he's wanting to be commercial and then have a conditional use.
Yeah, and then get the
for it.
conditional use for it.
Yeah, truck,
That was my assumption.
truck or equipment terminal, yeah.
Is he planning on expanding the use that he has right now? Did he tell you when you spoke with him?
So you'd have to.
He hasn't expressed that at all at this point.
So he hasn't come forward with a building permit or
No.
application or
That he
anything?
already has, and again.
Looks to me like he needs to come in,
The repair shop would always come on.
so if you start at
Yeah, I'm thinking he's.
1803,
Yeah, but it's repair shop motor.
the applicant will meet with the zoning administrator to discuss the requirements of sections 1723 and 1729.
Truck and equipment terminals would be.
Okay, so then he
you know, the
would
trucking.
officially apply to amend
I don't know.
Depending on what
that
he
zoning.
does.
And then there's some requirements along with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And then 1729, that just talks about the fees.
You know, the biggest concern I have is I don't know if we have enough information to complete section 1809.
Well, so that's, I
To check
think,
all the stuff on the list. In the times that we have rezoned, we've seen a laid out plan with, you know, the way it worked before is you tried to get the applicant to go through 1809 and address in his plan everything that we would, every question that we would be asking him.
right.
And I don't know that we have quite enough information to do that.
Yeah, see, that's what I think, it actually, I was talking to Gary, it refers back to 1723. They apply for this amendment, and then they go through a site development plan, and it goes through that same kind of stuff that's there. And then we would come to 1801, 1803 too. Prepare first and second notification letters, notice of hearing date 10 days in advance, you know, and then we would go into all of that. Not that we can't have, get some things ironed out prior to, but I think that starts the rezone process.
Well, should we grant a continuance so he can get that information to us by the next month meeting? That way he doesn't have to pay the fee again, and he can get all of his ducks in a row, and he'll be here so he can answer questions.
That seems appropriate.
I would think so.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Things that need to be
a lot to
answered.
go through.
I don't know how you answer those questions, you know, I
Without the
mean,
applicant
chances
here.
are the answers are here, he can get them to us, but, you know, I don't know how we answer them tonight without having a laid out plan.
Right.
You know, that kind of follows the application process. He should follow the application process and kind of check these off as he puts the information down for us, that he's given us
Sure.
the information to satisfy each one of these, and then if that's the case, then we should be able to follow right through with the information he gives us and check these off as we go.
Right. All right, so
So
somebody,
none of that process has been done, I mean, this,
we don't have the information before us. is
Usually
we're
what we
saying.
have
well,
is
he
a-
was here I'm
He
not gonna
was-
speak for the applicant,
He
but I
was,
just.
he was here just feeling out what he should do.
what we should
Okay,
do.
so in a sense, I'm
Yeah.
just bringing myself up to speed since I missed the last meeting.
Yeah,
So in
he wasn't
November-
really sure how to proceed or anything when he came last month.
And there's been no direction since given to him.
Well, he doesn't have the stuff we need to act on it.
Okay.
I don't think in the short term, I'm talking a month or two, that this is hurting him. I don't expect him, like Gary says, I don't expect that he wants to wait 6 months as we change the ordinance.
No.
I wouldn't expect that. But I don't think that we have all the information we need tonight. If we want to go through and try and figure out what information we have, you know, we can go through and say, we think we have the information for this and we don't have the information for this, but, and that way he would know, but, you know, at this point, without some kind of a plan to address some of these
Right.
points, I just don't, I don't know how when you get to a point where you get to one number and you can't address it, what do, you know?
Oh, no, I agree with that. I think he needs to be, I think the applicant needs to be here to discuss it too, for the
Right.
final.
Right.
But I just was curious at what
Double
point,
T's, owned by the stockyard.
what has happened.
So,
Well,
Since he
he's,
came here in October,
Wouldn't we
it's
wanna-
it's 2 months later, I'm just curious if then,
yeah,
and maybe Gary
out
knows we've done.
to the farm storage.
He's come in a transition with his application, a transition in the office too, so I'm just curious what has gone on, as far as communication back and forth with the applicant, has he been trying to do this, or, and he's not here to ask, so.
Yeah, I couldn't say.
So, I guess we just wanna make it perfectly clear to him, right, that, what we're expecting, is all I guess what I'm getting at the end here, I'm rambling a little bit, is that, can we just verbalize what we expect him to do for the next meeting?
Well, he
and
needs
then
to go
the
through the-
administrative items can be handled by the zoning, administrator in his office?
I think we just start 1803 is where it's
Are we
got-
expecting him to have that all laid out for us, or are we gonna go through?
well, yeah, that's what applicants usually do. They go through that ordinance and they make sure that they got their bases covered.
Is that what they usually do? I haven't seen
Yeah.
anything usual here in my 6 or 7 months, so I'm just asking, I wanna make sure that the applicant knows what we're expecting, so that when we get here in January, we're not going through this again saying, well,
I agree.
we need this, that, and the other thing.
I was under the impression that he had met with Mr. McGinnis and a lot of that information had already been provided to you. So we'll certainly give
Yeah,
that
I
to
don't-
the next meeting.
I'm guessing he talked with Mr. McGinnis about it, but we never saw anything specific on,
Okay.
you know, he came in and asked us, he came in and talked to us, and you weren't here yet then, I don't think. He came in and talked to us about the possibility of rezoning it so that he could move forward with the things that he's doing on the property now and do things associated with what he's doing on the property now without having a major problem of doing things that it says he shouldn't be doing in the district he's in. And I think the consensus of the board then was that he probably needed to rezone to commercial, you know, but at that point, I don't even know if we had McGinnis, I don't know if we had any zoning administrator at that point.
No, I
So,
think that
you
it was
know,
pretty.
I think, Gary, if you could, kind of go through this 1803 and whatnot, and then get a hold of Mr. Marquardt, and just, we'll get a game plan
Well,
together.
and some of the things that I'd like to see too in 1809, if he has certification of his compliance, if he's got plumbing records and zoning, electrical, I mean, we're gonna have to, I'm sure it's fine. You know, with that lagoon that he has there, is that, you know, does he have some permit with the state for that? I
you
know.
should. That would be the
Yeah.
one thing, you know, if you're certifying compliance, it'd be the lagoon stuff.
That's one of those things, you know, because, you know, that's a lagoon system for his truck stop, you know, the livestock guys, get heat if theirs isn't compliant. We should just be just as strict with his on a lagoon system and make sure that meets the requirements, whether it needs to be fenced or not. I guess I don't know. And then, Dennis brought up a good point with the ingress and egress. You know, does he have proper ingress and egress on that? I believe he does, with that one to the south.
Well, that's the thing, some of this we discussed, and he's got his
Yeah.
letter here, you know, we don't have the paper, I don't know if we have the paperwork or not, so that's what we need to
Yeah,
pause.
so-
But he talks about the lagoon and the state, and he's, you know, there's a lot of talk. But we
Yeah.
do have to, I would think, have proof of some of these things.
I'd say go through 1809, number 7, 1 through 9, and I guess have answers for those, if he's got all his signs and how his lights are, and where the utilities are located, and if he was here now and he could answer all those, I think we could make a decision, but right now, none of us can, you know, say if he, you know, where the utilities are with reference to location, availability, and compatibility. None of us can say that because we don't know. So we, you know, if he,
But I think also that we should consider contacting, or he should, double Ts. Why wouldn't we rezone that all the way to the north of double Ts and include double Ts in this rezone? I think it's foolish not to put that in that whole deal.
All right, so is somebody,
Or should we go into the work of rezoning it?
Right, if we're gonna go to the work, it's right across that driveway. Why wouldn't we continue to the south side of his farm shop, or whatever, Marquardt's farm shop? Why wouldn't we include that area? There is a little bit more room to the north side of the truck stop, if something ever did want to develop there.
Well, I think we talked about this with him when he was here in October. We talked about double T and whether,
Yeah.
and some.
But it wouldn't.
I'd have to watch the tape again to see who was gonna reach out to who, but I think we discussed all this.
But I just feel that should be included. I really do. It wouldn't be very long. What would that stretch be? Wouldn't be a quarter mile long.
I guess,
But I think it should be included.
you know, for the most part, it's gonna be up to the property owner, whoever owns Double T right now. You know, they've gotta decide if they wanna be a part of the process or not. You can certainly somehow inform them that the process is going on and see if they wanna piggyback on, just say, you know, they've already evidently been informed that this is going on next door, and I don't think the office has heard from them as a neighbor out there that I know of, so, you know, if they
Maybe they just
want
need
to.
an invitation to the party.
Yeah, if they want to, that's more than fine, but, you know, you may be asking somebody to do something and
Well, if
spend
they
some
don't
money
want
and
to.
time that they're not interested in, so, you know, that's kinda gonna be their call. Certainly,
I think
it
it
doesn't
goes-
hurt to offer. but-
Goes back to the setbacks and things like that, and why would I wanna put those
restrictions?
restrictions on my
Yeah.
property when I don't have them today?
That's-
Might be the response.
Yeah, it certainly is possible.
So I guess so everybody is clear, what we're discussing is potentially rezoning this property with the understanding that we need to take a look at this entire corridor and potentially come up with a new district or do something.
And I think the answer to that statement, in my mind, would be because, at some point, if they ever want to market that property, or make changes to double T, I can't speak, who knows what they're gonna do, but to be zoned properly, or it'd be a friendly district compared to your use is always a good thing, right? So there's advantages, not just disadvantages because of
Right.
setbacks, there could be other advantages to them at some point down the line,
In a commercial district.
if they were in a commercial district, since they are operating a commercial business.
Exactly, that's what I think too.
There's,
All right, so do we have a motion to have a continuance, grant them a continuance so they can come back with the information that we need to make a decision?
I'll make that motion to have the continuous for Mark Work rezoning process moved to next month.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote when you are ready.
Hanson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Clemish,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Healy.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Just for clarification, Gary, do you have any questions on what this board is asking?
No, I don't
Just-
think so. I think that's pretty clear.
You just pretty much go through 18 and make sure that he kind of has the idea of what everything that we're going to ask him, because what we're going to ask him is based on these questions. Anything else that we ask him, if it doesn't refer to one of these questions, shouldn't really apply. So as long as we can come up with an answer to each of these questions, that would be the information that we'd be looking for.
Give your flat.
All right, next item. East River Electric, conditional use permit. Applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to construct a communication tower. Said property is legally described as Lot 1 of Lancer Substation in Section 24, T94 North, Range 56 West, hereinafter referred to as Utica North Township, County of Yankton, State of South Dakota.
Madam Chairman, there's a typo in that. That should be section 8, not section 24.
Section 8?
Yeah, if you turn the page, they've got it, the correct one on their application, it's section 8, but on the
okay.
one you read out there is incorrect.
Thank you very much for that.
Good evening. My name is Paul Lecce, representing East River Electric on our land management side. East River Electric is requesting a conditional use permit to construct a 95-foot self-supporting communications tower in a new transmission substation that we are constructing on 435th Avenue, approximately a half-mile south of the town of Utica. This tower will allow us to control the internal mechanisms in the substation, being switching SCADA terminals, and monitor all the systems within the substation.
Mr. Liskey, I had a question. On your tower design, you're requesting for a 95-foot tower.
Correct.
Is there an antenna on the top of that, or is these two round circles on here your actual?
The round circles are the actual
Okay.
antennas.
Okay, because I noticed on your next one, in our tower thing, the total height amount is determined by the top of the antenna, not just the tower itself.
Of course.
And this at 95 feet, as long as there's nothing on it, but what's in our ordinance, I'll get to that when we get to that one, but my question was if there was an antenna on top of this past the 95 feet.
Not on this one, there's not.
In your drawing here that you provided with us, you have red measurements in. Basically, what I am seeing is that your tower is basically in the center of that area there.
It is in the center of the substation.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I was looking at fall zone to the road.
Correct,
And
yeah,
you got
and it- as you can
265
see on
feet.
there, it's 265 feet from the road right of way. So I believe we have plenty of clearance and presenting no danger to the county.
Right.
Will there be lights up on top of this tower?
We are not intending to put any lighting on the tower. I've run it through the FAA notice criteria, and they've returned an answer of no notice required, so there won't be any FAA requirements.
I know one other tower we were talking about that.
The one north on 81.
Yeah,
That Midcom tower.
yeah, and I don't know how tall that is, but I know the FFA, they don't always agree with it, but I know there were some people that said that, for the balloons, they would like to have lights on there. Remember that coming up on the tower here a couple of years ago. Gary Clover, I think. It's a little bit tall. Hard to see, but top, but then-
Guy, look at this engineering thing. This one.
I don't know.
Go through the tower ordinance, or we just,
Public
oh.
comment.
Would anyone want to speak on this issue from the public? You have a question? All right.
Is that tower available
Um,
for East
I'm-
River's use only, or is there gonna be space on that tower for other?
Sir, I'm sorry, you need to come up to the mic. It's a recorded meeting, so all you gotta do is just state your name for the record. And then you can ask your question, and then everyone will be able to hear it if they wanna watch the recording of the
My
meeting.
name is Gary Deedy, a
Sure.
resident of Utica,
Sure.
and my question is East River gonna be the sole operator of that tower, or are you gonna have space on that tower to lease to other entities?
East River will be the sole operator of the tower. There won't be space available to lease on the tower, mainly because it's going to be inside of a controlled access substation behind a security fence. The East River personnel will be the only people that will be allowed to go into that controlled facility. It will be in the middle of an energized substation. So in that instance, we don't provide the opportunity for co-location on those types of towers. Yes, very, very welcome.
Makes sense.
A very good plan. All right. Have any other questions?
What sections in that tower is?
What's gonna be the use of these antennas, sir?
It's going to be for internal communications between our SCADA system and our dispatch center.
Okay.
So our remote terminal units, monitoring of the internal systems, and then also, it'll give us the ability to utilize the switching station to, switch out and sectionalize lines faster than the manually operated switches that are there today. And the communications tower is essential for those functions to work correctly.
Thank you.
Sir, I think what Mr. Didi was getting at is, I know we have issues in our rural areas with rural connectivity, and as, you know, the internet keeps evolving, would there be any possibility in the future of, you know, saying an internet company being able to utilize that? Or do you not want to even have that as an idea? I know Utica especially is in a tough spot because there are no towers around there that they can use, and you guys want internet, I'm sure, right? That's part of it?
We have dependable internet right
Okay.
now ourselves.
Oh, okay,
That's not an issue for us.
okay, okay.
particularly.
So absolutely understand your point, and to speak to that, the main concern really is that we are in an energized substation. It is a 69,000 volt facility, so we don't allow anyone who's not qualified to be inside that substation.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And on our we have some other towers that are on our system when they aren't inside a controlled facility like that. I believe in the past we have entertained co-location. In fact, I know that on some of our larger towers that we use for our radio communication system between our commercial vehicles, we do have some co-locations on some of those, but again, being in the energized facility makes it pretty restrictive.
Yeah, it's a
Anyone
safety
would-
issue. You
It
don't
is,
want just
absolutely,
anybody there,
yeah.
because somebody will get hurt.
And if
That
we had
makes
an
sense.
agreement in place and someone needed to get in there, of course, we would have to escort them, we would have to,
Sure.
you know, qualify them through dispatch.
More trouble than it's
It's a
worth, probably. All right, that
Safety
makes
issue
sense.
and a security issue.
Absolutely,
You know,
both, yeah, we are considered
Right.
critical infrastructure, so
Yes.
it's definitely a security issue as well. Which is why we do the 6-foot fence with the barbed wire on it outside of our
Exactly.
facilities.
And keep the teenagers out.
That's right.
They wouldn't entertain it either because they have to have 24-hour access.
Exactly.
They-
they
I don't believe that
No,
we
they
would
wouldn't
get
get
another
it.
request. I mean, some of these towers we're putting in are a little bit taller than the towers we would traditionally put in, so they might get a second look, but I think once they find out that inside of an energized substation, they would be dissuaded.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the public before I close the part for public input? All right, you need to come forward and then ask your question at the podium, please. If you could state your name.
My name's Dan Pospisil, and I just wanted to repeat exactly where the tower's gonna be. I couldn't catch where it was gonna be.
Geographically or within our substation? Geographically. 434th Avenue, or 435th Avenue, half a mile south of the south end of Utica on the east side of the highway. So there's the quarter line fence right there. Our new substation facility is just on the south side of that quarter line fence.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? All right. The public part of the meeting is now closed. Do we have any other discussion or questions for the applicant, or a motion would be entertained?
because this is the first time I've dealt with this. So the tower ordinance, right, section 25, is what we're looking at.
Which is a mess.
Well, okay. But, we're gonna go through each of these items in here, go through the list, or what?
If you want to, we can.
Should, no, don't we have to?
You probably should.
Assuming that's the way it gets done.
Yep.
No?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah,
I
you should.
see one person shake his
should.
head no. Well, I'm just trying to make sure.
Gary, which towers get kicked to our consulting company, and then which ones do we handle?
Yeah, generally it's not, from what I was told, the substation type ones are generally administrative approvals, and it's the outside larger ones that go to the consultant. But that's certainly one of the discussion points we're gonna have when he comes to meet here this next month.
Okay.
Besides just looking at the ordinance again too.
Right.
Yeah, because it's not a very particularly tall tower.
No.
There's silos that are this tall.
Exactly.
But does that mean it's excluded out of the, following the guidelines here?
No, I wouldn't say that. But
And it's not- it doesn't-
I haven't seen anything in here that would point to a problem.
You know, I just think what Greg is asking is like, you know, we just talked about a conditional use for changing a rezone, for changing a zone, and that listed a whole bunch of things to go through, and, you know, I haven't dealt with I'll, you know, be honest, I haven't dealt with 2505. Section 25 was not in the ordinance back when I was on the board before, so this is something new to me. But it does kind of have a checklist for us to go through, you know, and I don't know how much of that's already been gone through. You know, maybe all those answers are there, and it doesn't take much to go through them.
Well,
I think 2506 is probably where we need to.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's where
yes, that's where I'm at.
That's why, it's quite
Right.
extensive, so that's why I was just wondering.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking a lot of these questions are already answered, it's just that, you know.
And
we
some
need to-
probably likely don't apply. That's
Yeah.
something we've,
Well, 11B, a balloon test. Have you done a balloon test?
We have not done a balloon test.
Okay. So do we think he needs to do a balloon test since 11B says it's a new tower?
And one of the things the consultant has mentioned that he feels the balloon tests are invalid now because the wind's always blowing here and they can't get a true indication of what the tower looks like regardless, so they've started going to drones now. And that's one of the discussion points is probably looking at redoing the ordinance to include something like that, which gives us actually valid information versus something that's swaying and bending and
Well, what do you do, if the ordinance says you need to do a balloon test, we can just decide we don't want to follow 11B, or, that's just me going through, I mean, that's why I was wondering if we're gonna, I'm looking at this agenda as we're coming up, I'm gonna look at section 25, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be interesting, because there's, you know, how many items are on section 2506 here?
there's 1, 2, 3,
24.
4.
So this balloon
5.
test, this is for
7
people to
pages.
see where the top of the tower is gonna be.
yeah, so people can get an idea of what 100 feet looks, 95 feet looks like, or 60
As far as where it'll be visually from their place.
Right.
And all I'm asking is what
What do we do?
processes?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are we going through this one item by item?
Well, you can.
Or is there something I'm missing that says we don't have to? Because I don't see anything that, so far that says we don't have to. I mean, there's the exclusion section, but.
Yeah, I don't think we meet any of the exclusions, unfortunately.
I didn't see any. So I'm sorry if I'm taking up the applicant's time. You want, Madam Chairman,
No, that's fine.
Part of
Maybe
one of
this is past this, in our discussion here, but I just.
One of the
wanted to
things
get
we
that.
have to meet is whether or not, you gotta have to have a checklist determine that it is or isn't categorically excluded, that's one of the, that's one of the
Where are
things.
you?
506, number 9, way over in like Q.
Q, yeah.
It's quite extensive is why we're having,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
there's a lot of stuff here
You
to try
probably
and
read
take
this,
in.
or-
I have read it, yeah. I guess I was under the impression, we spoke with the zoning staff about it, and it was my understanding that if it was not gonna need to be examined by the consultant, that we were, I guess, I'm gonna say exempt. I don't know that I was told exempt, but we did discuss having a consultant look at the towers to determine whether or not they needed to be studied.
Sure. And I don't think this is something the consultant needs to look at. You know, I think, you know, you're suffering a little bit because this is fairly new to some of us, this tower part.
Sure.
And we're trying to satisfy the parts that we need to, because in other parts of the zoning ordinance, we try and satisfy the parts we need to in order to satisfy the ordinance, and we're trying to find our way to do that here.
Absolutely,
And it's just something we're not experienced in.
sure. And I know with a lot of the comm expansions, you know, now more than ever, our communication system falls into that category. As previously, we weren't necessarily included in that category, but now with all the larger towers going up,
Yeah.
comm tower's a comm tower, so whatever we need to meet for compliance.
Okay, obviously this isn't a new site, so I don't see any problem at all with 1 through 6 that I just read through.
I'm sorry, I'm not, 1 through 6, 2506, 1 through
2506, 1 through 6. I think he's met all those requirements. Number 1 talks about him applying for a conditional use permit. Obviously, he's here. Number 2 says the county can reject applications not meeting the requirements stated herein. Okay, so we've already established that. Number 3, no wireless communications facility shall be installed, constructed, or modified until the application is reviewed. We're reviewing it now. Number 4, any and all representations made by the applicant to the county on the record during the application process, whether written or verbal, shall be deemed a part of the application and can be relied upon in good faith. Number 5, an application for a conditional use permit for a wire telecom facility shall be signed on behalf of the applicant. He's already applied. Number 6, the applicant must provide documentation to verify it has the right to proceed as proposed on the site. Obviously, it's an established site.
We own the site.
Right.
That's their
You own
site.
it?
This is
We own
about
the
somebody
site.
putting a tower on another leasing
Right,
property.
right,
is
like a
really
new
what
tower,
that
this is
number's
his
about.
site, they
That's
own
their
the keys,
site.
that's why I'm saying that doesn't apply.
There's gonna be things in here that I think we're gonna have to, are not applicable to this. When this was written, it had big towers.
Yeah.
It's caused quite a few issues in the past, and we're in the process of meeting to revamp this. Not saying we can just skip it, but I think we can go through, and I think if we agree some of them are not applicable here, we
Right.
can move on.
That's what I think, kind of the way
Right.
she's doing it, as far as, that's what I've been trying to do, is just kind of look through it and see if any of
See
them
if
pop
any of
out
them
as a
pop
question
out.
we
So
do need to
we need
ask
to
you.
ask you.
That's my whole
Yeah.
point is, regardless of what we want or what's
Yeah.
gonna happen in the future,
Is today.
what we have right now is this, we have to go through it.
Right.
I understand, yeah, no, I agree.
State's attorney agree with me on that, or we can't just say, oh, we're gonna fix this in the future, but for now you can just let it go. We'll do whatever we want.
You're right.
So we gotta get going here on
That's
the next
why we're doing it.
3 pages of stuff before we can just say yeah or no.
Yeah, I
Just
think
wanna
the
make
way,
sure I wasn't in a different time zone or something here.
I think the way Chrissy's doing it is fine, as long
All
as
right,
she's
number
going through and
7.
nobody has an objection to
Okay,
the
great.
number, that's,
Okay, I'm just making sure now I'm on the page with everybody else.
you're up to number 7.
Applicant shall include the statement in writing. Proposed wire telecom facility shall be maintained in a safe manner. Obviously, it's going to be maintained. It's your benefit to do so. You just mentioned you won't allow co-location for security reasons and for safety reasons. So you're already addressing a conducting business in a safe manner. B, the construction of the wireless telecom facility is legally permissible. Obviously, we're going through the legal process now. 8, where a certification is called for in this section, each certification shall bear the signature and seal of the registered professional engineer. Obviously, it's professionally engineered.
We have a stamped set of plans.
Yeah, we don't, do we have that?
You have the initial plan, you have the one-page diagram with the tower.
Right.
That the
Since then-
engineers stamped the little circle.
Since then, we have the engineer stamped
This,
final plans. That's the site plan.
okay,
That's just the location.
Where it is in the.
Oh,
well, that's the site.
The site plan
That's
is
just a
stamped.
site
The actual tower design, however, what
Yeah, that one
you,
is-
what you guys have is just this.
Yeah,
I can now provide a full set of engineer certified tower plans
Okay.
Okay.
that we have in hand at this time.
so we'll make sure that that gets,
Mr. Better gets that.
And that has all the load specifications and structural information.
Okay.
In addition to all other required information as stated in the ordinance, all applications for the construction of a new telecom tower or modifications of an existing facility shall contain the information hereinafter set forth. Well, that was a whole lot of nothing, we just said that. A, all right. A descriptive statement of the objectives for the new facility. You just stated what the objectives were, that's covered. B, documentation that demonstrates and proves the need for the wireless telecom facility. It's necessary to have communication within your switch terminals for your substation. It's a necessary thing. C, the name, address, and phone number of the person preparing the report. You're right here. The name, address, and phone number of the property owner, the same
East River
company.
Electric.
The postal address and tax map parcel number of the property. The address I'm sure is on here.
It's, we had submitted for an address, an E911 address. I believe that's
Okay.
now been prepared, we just haven't picked it up yet, so the application says to be determined.
Okay,
We
TBD.
come to,
437.
We've got the parcel number.
you've got the.
Yeah, we got the parcel number. The zoning district or designation in which the property is situated.
It'd
I
be an
believe it's
ag.
ag,
Yeah,
isn't
be an
it?
ag, yeah.
Yep, and it's marked there on the
It's on the
application.
application.
Size of the property stated in both square feet and lineal
Lot line dimensions.
line dimensions, yep. And that would be on your site map, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yep, covered.
can't read it.
Location of the nearest
There was more
resident.
paper there, you could have filled it up.
I'm not sure, I think maybe that one got printed sideways on the page.
Okay, and I'm sure the closest residence, is that what's in the little square south of it?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's been designated. The location, size, and height of all existing and proposed structures on the property in which the subject is, okay, that's on the site map. The type, locations, and dimensions of all proposed and existing landscaping and fencing on the site map, it shows where your fencing is.
Yes.
That. Azimuth size and center line height location of the proposed and existing antenna. We just discussed size of the tower and antenna. The size, number, and model of the antennas. I imagine the models and stuff would be on that more detailed map that would be
And
given to the zoning office.
most likely in the stamped set of engineering.
Yeah, it'd be on that engineering report. The make, model, and type of the manufacturer, that would be on that engineering report. Site plan, we have it. Frequency modulation and class of service of radio, it's not a radio, or other transmitting equipment. I imagine that would also be in that engineering report.
I believe it should be, I'm not 100% sure. We can definitely provide the frequency ranges.
Okay.
That's why it was written this way, so we would.
The actual intended transmission power. stated in the maximum effective modulated power in watts.
I do not believe that is listed anywhere. That is another piece of information that we can certainly provide.
Okay, so, let's see, we've got, that is section 2506, and that, what was the letter on that one? That
I believe
would
the FAA is
be
gonna
O
have-
and P.
O and P he's gonna
O
provide,
and
yeah.
P, he can provide. All right, signed documentation checklist to determine whether a facility is categorically excluded. To verify that the wireless telecom communication,
I'm assuming that would be something that Gary would do, the checklist that says it doesn't meet any of the exclusions. So that's something administratively that he would handle.
Correct.
So,
signed statement that the proposed installation will not cause physical or RF interference with other telecom devices. Would think you'd have to ask the engineer about that.
so we're making a list of things he's gonna provide later.
Yep, O, P, R,
So Q.
Q,
Q.
yep, O, P, Q, R. We're just going through the alphabet, folks. Are you getting this? Well, we'll write it down and we'll
Okay,
get it to you.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's,
All right.
if you could.
Thank you for your
please-
patience.
No problem. If you could please provide me a list with the additional information that you need, we would be happy to comply.
A copy of the FCC license application.
Is this licensed? Okay,
It
FCC
it
licensed?
will be licensed frequencies, yes.
Okay. So that'll be S. T, a copy of the geotechnical subsurface soil investigation. Well,
Has been performed.
all right. That's okay then. And number 10, we made it to 10. That was 9O. Are you taking notes there, sir?
Yeah.
We've got 9O, P, Q, R, and S so far. All righty. Number 10, the applicant will provide a written copy of an analysis completed by a qualified individual or organization to determine if the proposed new tower on existing structures intended to support wireless facilities in compliance with FAA. Well, you already did that. FAA. You called and contacted them.
Actually went
That's all
through
part
their,
of the antenna design, or
Yeah.
the tower design.
Tower
Lighting
design.
requirement, you've already done
You already done
some
that.
right.
work
so-
on the lighting requirement, and they said you didn't need,
Right.
So the FAA does uses a criteria tool now. So I go onto their system and I enter latitude, longitude, the ground elevation and the above ground level of the tower, and submit it to them for their criteria test. And this particular tower passed their criteria test with no notice required, so
Okay.
they don't actually really have any jurisdiction over whether or not we light it.
So can you provide that analysis?
I can provide that.
so add that
We're gonna need that. It says, right?
number 10. You're gonna add that number
Yep.
10 to the list?
Don't
Yep.
we need that?
Number 10.
You should have a copy of it. We don't want somebody to hit it with a plane and say, hey, how come they didn't have no light on it?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well,
And why do people balloon at night? Don't they have to see where they're going?
Maybe they can't get
Fog.
something.
Fog sets. in.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
I
last
can see
Saturday,
that.
fog came within 5 minutes. It was, our
Yeah.
place was engulfed in fog.
All right, 11A, application for a new tower. In case of a new tower, applicant shall be required to submit a written report demonstrating meaningful efforts to secure shared use. We already discussed that.
Yeah, I don't think he
We
needs
gave him
that.
relief on that. In order to better inform the public, in the case of a new telecom tower, applicant shall, prior to the public hearing, that's the balloon test. Do we want to just give him relief on that? Because it's pointless when it's blowing 25, 30 miles an hour, which it almost always
Our
is.
professional consultant has said that it's
It's kind of
Oh,
useless.
It's irrelevant.
dated, it's irrelevant today,
Yeah.
and that's
I
where,
agree.
do we have that somewhere written down? Do we have that in writing
I
from
don't know
our?
if it's in writing.
I think we need everything in writing. What do we keep doing to ourselves here? When we just sit here and say, well, so-and-so said this, or so-and-so said that. And I told my wife I wasn't gonna sit up here and rant and rave tonight, but we keep going into these things, so I'm sorry, dear, but, we keep going into these things, and we say, well, somebody said something, or somebody said, well, nobody said anything 6 months from now, if it's not in writing. So my little soapbox here is, if it says we need something in writing, we need it in writing. We can't just say, that's good enough. And if our consultant, Mr. Vedder, says our consultants, well then, please have him put it down in
We
writing.
can do that.
So it's not just somebody's here, it's hearsay. Mr. State's Attorney, please chime in.
No,
Is that, if it's not in writing, did it happen? Or is it true, if it's not in writing?
You have some proof issues, right? I mean, I can deny it or say I didn't say it the way I said it. But it's how you guys want to handle things into the future too. I mean, just reading some of these requirements, it does say in writing, and what he's to provide.
Mhm.
We're going over kind of quick, but I agree, it's better to have it in writing, put it in the file, and you know what's there, and you know in the future you're not going to address it, you're going to gloss over it because you handled it this way just now, so. Better to have it in writing, that's true.
Thank you.
and maybe at some point we'll take this out if we write the,
Well, if we say.
But that's them.
If we say we're not going to have a balloon test on this tower because Mr. Vedder said that our professional consultant said, all it takes is one person in this, I said, you said, to say I didn't say that, and now we have an issue. Somebody comes in and says, you know what, they put up this tower and I can see it from my house in Utica and it drives me nuts and oh my God, I can't sleep at night. Or it ruins my view from my back deck. And when they say, why didn't you have a balloon test done? And we say, well, because Mr. Vedder said, that our consultant said, well, who said what? There's no proof of any of it. And if I had to stand up in court of law and try to prove my case, I'd feel pretty stupid about now, because we just went on somebody's say-so. So there's no offense to anybody personally. I believe everything that everybody's saying to me. Why wouldn't I? But go and prove it later, haven't we learned anything from all these lawsuits? That if we don't have it in writing somewhere, then it never happened. So why don't we just cover the county's butt and make sure we put all this stuff down in writing?
All right, back to the subject at hand. Duly noted,
It is the subject at hand.
and it is duly noted, but we need to keep moving forward.
I know everybody's in a big hurry, but we better do this right, or we're gonna end up having lawsuits over towers.
C,
Hey,
11C, for those of you that are paying attention. The applicant shall examine the feasibility of designing the proposed tower to accommodate future demand for at least 4 additional commercial applications. Future co-locations. We did address that in this particular case, it is not applicable.
Right.
Due to security reasons, this is key infrastructure. It is simply not allowed to have anybody other than qualified personnel inside that enclosure, and it is common sense not to have anyone in there for that reason. So C is taken care of. D, the owner of the new proposed tower, his or her successors in interest shall negotiate in good faith the shared use of the proposed tower by other wireless service providers. We already addressed that. Moving on to number 12. The applicant shall provide certification with documentation, structural analysis, including calculations that the telecom facility, tower, and foundation and attachments, rooftop support structure not applicable, water tank structure, okay, we're going backwards here. Or any supporting structure as proposed be utilized and are designed and constructed, okay, he's got a engineering firm that designed it, so we can move on to number 13. If proposal is for co-location, moving on to number 14, because it's not. All proposed wireless telecom facilities shall contain a demonstration that the facility is sited so as to be the least visually intrusive, reasonably possible, given the facts and circumstances involved. Okay, he only has one place to cite it. It's within the guidelines of that facility, so that is not applicable. Next, number 15. Number 15, if a new tower proposed for the new antenna attachment to an existing structure, it's not attached to an existing structure. So we can skip down to 16. The applicant shall demonstrate and provide in writing and/or by drawing how it shall effectively screen from view the base and all related equipment and structures of the proposed wireless telecom facility.
I think that site plan shows
Site
that.
plan, yep. Number 17, wireless telecom facility and any and all accessory and associated facilities shall minimize,
Can I go back to 16, I'm sorry?
yes,
That talks about screening, right? View, a view from the view. That's in the site plan?
It's in the center of a substation.
yeah. The substation is
Fence.
already an
Is that-
eyesore. So,
Okay.
are you gonna have 100-foot?
No, but they put woven fabric in chain link fence, so you can't see any of it, the base, the substation, I don't know. There's other visual, you're talking about screening the whole tower, or just, this talks
The
about
base of the
screening the
tower.
base?
Base of the tower.
Well, that's what I'm saying, this talks about screening the base. So, no, I didn't ask for 100-foot, I'm not asking for
Oh,
100-foot
okay,
trees,
okay, I'm
but
sorry.
I'm not trying to be difficult here, and I feel like I'm paddling upriver here, but, because everybody's in a hurry to do this, but we're going through this so fast, I really don't feel like we're,
How do you guys plan on screening the base of the
Effective
tower?
there.
You're gonna have a fence around the whole facility. Is there something you could do? Could you put, maybe some of those fabric screens he was talking, like why it goes across the road? Or do we wanna make that a condition that if there's complaints that they put that on the, is that kinda what you're looking at? If there's
Well, I
some
guess the reason
complaints,
that I
they put some of
answered
those in
that
there?
quickly is because the substation itself surrounds the tower, so that's pre-exists. It,
well, but I'm sure you'll be able to see through that fence and see.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm,
not the fence, I'm talking the sub tower itself. The structure of the the substation physically surrounds that tower.
well, I don't know without what it's gonna look like. Well, I can see overhead, Joe, but I don't know what it's gonna look like, if you're gonna be able to see through. You can have transformers that you can see, I mean, you go to the substation,
We could surely
there's a
make
transformer
that,
on the outside, doesn't mean you can't see the stuff that's in the
we
middle.
could certainly make that a condition if there's complaints that they screen it with, there's those pieces that you slide in the chain link fence, if there's complaint, if there's no complaints, if nobody came in and recommended that, do we need to do it? If there are complaints, we could.
I agree that if
But it
there's no
should be
issue,
discussed,
if
yeah.
there's no issue, if nobody has an issue, the
Yeah.
neighbors don't, then maybe, but as long as we discuss it and we make sure, like you said,
It's a
or you're
good point.
proposing, I guess, that, if there is an issue, that we can come back and readdress this and the applicant's aware that we've discussed it.
Yep.
Based on the configuration of the substation, I would say it's pretty possible that you are gonna be able to see the base of the tower through the fence.
And everything else that's inside there, right? I mean, all the other
Everything, yeah.
ancillary equipment that goes
Use-
along with it. yeah.
Use a pretty tight weave on our fencing, but yeah, I mean, you can see through it. It's a chain link fence.
Yeah, okay.
How tall is the equipment inside there? Is it 7, 8 foot, 12 foot?
Where the-
components inside your base?
The towers, I believe, are in the 50-foot range. For the, when I say towers, I mean our dead-end structures, the steel structures where things come in, and then from there they step down as you move into the substation. They get smaller, go through the transformers, regulators, down to the control building. So the tallest of the structures would be on the outside of the
Okay.
infrastructure of the substation.
So really, there's only gonna be 40 foot exposed.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Yeah, right. I'm just thinking we need to slow down and talk about it for a second, that's all, that's my whole point.
I agree.
So, yeah, that's all I'm saying. So there's gonna be towers outside, there's gonna be other equipment that's over the fence, not just the tower.
Right.
Some
I
of
mean,
this, a lot of
there's-
this is written if it's just a tower inside
Right.
fence.
Right.
I understand.
Just a bare old
Right.
tower out in the
A
middle of
bare
the brick.
tower, yeah.
I understand.
You know, and if it was in a resident, like Zane just said, if this was in a residential area, we'd probably do it different than out in the bare field like he's saying, but it's good you brought that up, so.
I just wanna go through this
Nope.
the same way
I-
every time.
I agree.
So that we don't miss something because we're in a
agree.
hurry. I don't wanna be here anymore, longer than anybody else, but, thank you.
Nope, that's fine. So are you okay with him not putting the little strips in the fence, or do you want to make that a requirement?
No, I don't wanna make it a requirement, that was not my, no, I just wanted to
Okay.
discuss it, now we have, and
All right.
if there's no, if there's not a more of a majority that thinks we need that, then I'm fine with not doing it too.
Okay, all right, no problem. Okay, number 17, the wireless telecom facility and any and all accessory and associated facilities shall maximize the use of building materials, colors, and textures designed to blend in with the structures. Okay, it's a substation. It's not gonna blend in with anything.
The
And it's
tower should
already
blend in
existing.
with the substation.
The tower will blend in with the
Everything looks like a
substation.
dip-
So that is kind of blending in with the surrounding structures.
It
be
it
great.
is, yeah, it is made out of the
Just like
same
an old
material
wind
and
tower.
There you
Out in
go.
the middle of the brick.
Great.
Okay, so I'm going to say that's met. 18. All utilities at a wireless telecom facility site shall be installed underground and in compliance with all laws, ordinances, rules, and regulations, including specifically but not limited to National Electrical Safety Code. Do you think you can follow the National
I
Electrical Safety Code?
don't think we'll have a problem following the
Okay,
National
thank
Electrical
you.
Safety Code.
19. As a telecom site, all an access road, turnaround space, and parking shall be provided to assure adequate emergency and service access. Maximum use of existing roads, whether public or private, shall be made to the extent practicable. Road construction shall at all times minimize ground disturbance and the cutting of vegetation. Road grades shall closely follow natural contours to assure minimum visual disturbance and reduce soil erosion. Can you comply with that?
Yes, we actually do not have a road to the tower. We have a graded gravel pad the tower will sit on and an approach to the county road.
All right, thank you.
What's the surface of the whole inside? Do you kind of gravel the whole inside or rock the whole inside, or what do you do inside?
The finish is a
fence?
4-inch lift of rock.
Okay,
Below
so
that
everything,
is a 6-inch lift
instead of an
gravel.
individual road, it'll all be travelable, it'll all be rock inside the fence?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. The entire site within that fence we'll be able to get in there and drive around with our trucks and stuff.
You'd have to be able to,
Correct.
yeah. All right, 20. All wireless telecom facilities shall be constructed, operated, maintained, repaired, and provided for the removal of modification, modified, or restored in strict compliance with all current applicable technical, safety, and safety-related codes adopted by state. Okay, you're going to do that. And it mentions the National Electrical Safety Code, so codes referred to, okay. You will follow all of the recommended safety, health, and land use codes. That's why you're here. Number 21, a holder of a conditional use permit granted under this section shall obtain at its own expense all permits and licenses, that's why you're here, is to obtain the permit. Number 22, there shall be a pre-application meeting. You already had one with him? All right. Number 25, an applicant shall submit to the county the number of completed applications determined to be needed at the pre-application meeting. Written notification of the application shall be provided to a legislative body. That's why we're here. Number 24, the holder of the conditional use permit shall notify the county of any intended modifications of a wireless telecom facility. All right, so if down the road, 10 years down the road, you need to change something, you need to come back for a CUP.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Number 2507, location of wireless telecom facilities. Okay, it can only locate or site it in accordance with the following priorities, 1 being the highest priority, 6 being the lowest priority. Okay, this doesn't apply to you because you cannot locate this facility anywhere but inside your facility. This is trying to encourage, again, co-location.
Of course.
All right, so,
Probably skip down through.
we can skip down through those because it's not applicable here. Number 2, if the proposed site is
I think
not
all of this
proposed, I think we
applies-
can, yeah, we
applies
can
to
skip through all of that.
2507.
It's all about priorities, right
Yep.
down to,
About citing priorities,
It's
yeah.
about
and they're not-
citing, yep, okay.
Section 2508 is shared.
Yeah,
and
so
that's
again,
not-
that
this
doesn't
isn't
apply.
shared.
Number 2509, height of the telecom tower. You already have that on your application.
Yes.
It's 95 feet
95
tall. We
feet
already know
tall.
that.
Just a quick question on 2509. How did you guys determine the height of your tower? What this asks is, this asks for you to document why it couldn't be 10 feet shorter.
Our telecom department does what they call an engineering path study to see how high it needs to get to the next jump point with minimal interference.
Okay, so that's where you need to be based on that test.
Based on that path study, then
Okay.
they came back with a determination that we needed at least a 95-foot tower at that location based on the position of the actual antennas. to be
Is
able to
that
jump
path
in.
study something that the county has a copy of, or
Not currently, I
can we add that to the list of information that we would have on file?
think we can do that.
All right, so that is section,
25091. His path study will justify the height of the tower.
okay,
That would be something I would see us asking kind of every time.
yep.
That's good.
No tower constructed after the effective date of this amended section, including allowing for all attachments, shall exceed the height which shall permit operation without required, we already addressed the artificial lighting, so we can move on. Section 2510, visibility of wireless telecom facilities. Wireless telecom facilities shall not be artificially lighted, marked except as required by law. So there you are, you complied with the law. You went to the FFA and got that confirmed. Number 2, towers shall be galvanized and/or painted with rust preventative paint of an appropriate color to harmonize with the surroundings of your lovely substation. Okay, I think that one will be just fine.
The coding spec should be in the plan set.
Okay.
there's proof that our zoning ordinance promotes harmony
That's right.
Yeah.
With colors.
with everything, with its
Love thy
with its
neighbor
surroundings, so.
And your substation.
I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Now, there is a standard on the hot dip even in here. I mean, it's on the specs.
Okay. 2511, security of the wireless telecom facilities. I believe we have addressed that for security.
I think the well done did,
Oh,
This facility is
antennas,
totally
it's-
locked. It's fenced and locked, other
It's
than.
fenced and locked, yep.
Correct. Terrible stuff.
Other supporting structures, there is no guy wires on this.
It is self-supporting tower, there are no guy wires, no.
Yeah, that's what I saw in the picture. All right. And we already addressed that transmitters and telecom control points are all only accessible to your
Correct.
employees, qualified employees. Section 2512, signage.
What kind of signage do you guys have on the fence? Do you have any kind of signage,
We
you
do,
know,
we
like a
do have
warning?
a sign that calls it out as an East River Electric facility with the name of the substation, which in this case would be the Lancer substation. I believe those signs are 4 foot by 5 foot. They go right on the security fence.
All right, some typical warning, high voltage kind of
Yeah,
signs
there
you
will be
guys-
a high voltage warning, and in all cases, when we have communications facilities, there is notice that travel inside any closer than the actual fence could potentially expose somebody to, the higher telecom type radiation. So
Right.
we will have all our warning signs will be placed on the substation fence.
Yep. All right, 2513, lot size and setbacks. All proposed towers and any other proposed wireless telecom facility structures shall be set back from abutting parcels, recorded rights of way, and road and street lines greater than the distances. The following distances: a distance equal to the height of the proposed tower. We already talked about the fall height is double what's necessary. It's twice what the height of your tower is. We talked about that at the beginning of the meeting.
Correct.
All right, so 2514, retention of expert assistance and reimbursement by applicant. All right, so we just determined that the consultant wasn't needed, so we can move on to the next section, 2515. Public hearing and notification, we're doing that right now. 2516, action on an application for a conditional use permit. We're in the conditional use permit process. All right, do you want me to read through all these? I can do that.
These aren't necessarily requirements of the applicant, it looks like requirements of us.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're just the action that we take.
Right,
So-
so I think we can skip it. Because we're taking the action right now. It's a public hearing. Anybody that wanted to come and ask questions were welcome to do so. All right, proper notifications were made for this meeting, for all the affected parties. So that's covered, that's in your application as well. Section 2517, extent and parameters of a conditional use permit for wireless telecom facilities. Extent and parameters of a conditional use permit shall be as follows. Such CUP shall not be assigned, transferred, or conveyed. It won't be. Your East River Electric, you're not gonna give it to someone else. Such conditional use permit may, upon a hearing for the prior notice of the applicant, be revoked, canceled, or terminated for a violation of the CUP or for a material violation of this ordinance after written notice to the holder of the conditional use permit. All right. So they're saying if you don't do what you're supposed to do, they can revoke the permit. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Absolutely.
2518, application fee, I'm sure that's been paid.
Yes, it has.
2519, performance security. We discussed security already. Oh, no, we were talking about security bond. Here we go. The applicant and the owner of record of any proposed wireless telecom facility shall, at its cost and expense, be jointly required to execute and file with the county a bond or other form of security acceptable to the county as to the type of security and form and manner of execution in the amount of at least $75,000 for a tower facility. So do you have a performance bond?
Currently, I do not believe so.
So we would want to add that to the list. If you could get a performance bond, that would be lovely.
For 75.
I'm gonna also point you to section 2526, relief.
Okay.
Any applicant desiring relief, waiver, or exemption from any aspect or requirement of this ordinance may request such, and that goes on. I would imagine you're gonna wanna request relief from that.
Is there a chance that East River Electric has a performance bond in general that would cover?
It's possible. This isn't something honestly, I have not come across, so it's something I'll have to check on, but
I don't-
I'll have to have a discussion with some guys back at the office about how we want to handle that.
'Cause
We may very well request relief, but.
Yeah, my guess is you don't need a performance bond specific to this tower site. You
Just
need
in
a
general,
performance bond in
bond.
general
To operate in Yankton or something.
that kind of covers you liability-wise.
And I'm sure you
As
have
a
extensive
company-
liability coverage
As a company in
with the
general, I
type
don't
of
know that,
facility it is. They would have to have.
yeah, I don't
that.
know that it would be a specific bond to a specific site. I'm assuming it needs a company that's
Overall.
bonded, you
Yeah,
know.
blanket policy.
Yeah, I'm assuming this may be something you guys technically can cover already,
It's
but,
very possible. I've consulted with our general counsel to see
Well-
what all we have in place in that respect.
Yeah, and I think this is, part of this too is to protect the county because we wouldn't want some huge tower to go up and the company goes out of business and then now it's on the county to tear it down. and-
That was
Right.
what it was
So
put in.
all
this
I'm
for.
saying is, if we're gonna sue somebody over this tower, it's
Yeah.
gonna be East River Electric, and it's gonna be East River Electric in total, it's not gonna be East River Electric as this site of this substation.
Right.
If we had a problem, we would go after East River Electric in total,
Right.
which is, got multiple sites other places. I'm assuming they may have run into this before, or simply have a performance bond for other things that they do in the public domain, But you can find out and address that, would be great.
I will. Thank you.
Section 2520, reservation of authority to inspect wireless telecommunication facility. In order to verify that the holder of the conditional use permit for the wire telecom facility and any all lessees, renters, so on and so forth, of the telecom facility.
It says the county can inspect.
Yeah, the county can inspect it. We've already discussed this, the security issue involved in that. So we can move on to 2521, liability insurance. And that goes right along with what we were talking about with the performance bond. So you just want to verify that and send a copy.
Just general liability insurance for
Right.
East River Electric. Yep.
Right, and I'm sure that's in force. You just need to send it to us. So that was section 2521, liability insurance. Number 2, for a wireless telecom facility on county property.
It's not on
It's not on county property. Number 3, insurance policies. All right, going down again, we just addressed the insurance.
Pretty steep.
Again, with the
pretty steep
insurance.
Insurance limits there.
Right.
Like 2 million for an auto, or 1 million, and 2 million aggregate?
Does that whole section pertain to
Insurance, yeah.
but on
On county property, that's what I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out.
I don't understand what.
What, Greg?
Does that whole section pertain to a facility that would be on county property?
No,
Well,
just number
No, just 1 and 2.
number 2.
Number 2.
1 and 2. That's how I read it. Because the other bullet points don't mention the county. Okay, but it all pertains to insurance and you're going to cover that, so we can move on to section 2522, indemnification. Any application for a wireless telecom facility that is proposed on county property, again, irrelevant. Let's move on to 2523, fines. In the event of a violation of this ordinance,
I don't think you have to read that.
Yeah, I don't think that's
Thank
any
you.
conditions
I-
of this.
Well, you're the chairperson, you can ultimately decide what you want to do.
well, if anybody really loves to read aloud,
I don't think,
if I run out of water, it's gonna be somebody
I
else's
think a
turn.
teacher would be used to that.
but.
That's
yeah,
why I keep
allowed.
doing it here. I'm sucking it up.
I'm tired of it all day.
Here we go, sorry. 25, 24, default. All right, you understand what happens if it's in default. Can we move on?
Yes.
All
Yeah, I
right,
don't actually know that any of the rest of this
all right.
is any review.
Administrative stuff.
Other than the relief, if they do want to try and get relief from we don't need to read it or go through it, but there is relief there, 25, 26. If it's something you guys don't have the bonding or whatever, and you want to look into the relief, it's listed in here, you know, for you guys to look at, so.
Yep.
Okay, so 2527, adherence to state and federal rules and regulations. Already addressed that as well. You have to follow state and federal rules. You would have to as the facility that you maintain and operate right now. So that's kind of a moot point. And we're done. Okay. So, one question I have, is the next tower the exact same type of tower?
I've already thought of that.
I'm afraid it's not. It's a smaller tower.
It's a smaller
Smaller.
tower. Is it of a
Smaller,
similar design?
It's a self-supporting lattice tower. Yes, it's not this, the Lancer tower, the 95-footer is a tapered tower. This one is a 24-inch three-sided lattice that sits on a single foundation. And I believe in your package you should have the stamped set of plans for that one.
Yep, that's got the stamp on it.
Yep.
Madam Chairman, do we want to
Well,
take
we've got
action on
action.
this one?
Yes, we will. I
Yeah.
just was really hoping it
You wanted
was.
to just go through both
we
of them
could-
at the same time, is what you was looking for. Were you on this board in
All right.
2018? Huh? What were you doing in 2018 when all this came forward?
All right, so you have a notation of things that he can provide to us?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Do you have any other questions for us, sir?
I do not.
All right, thank you. I would entertain a motion from the board
Move
to act on this.
Approval contingent upon the items outlined. Information is provided at the next county commission meeting.
Okay.
Planning Commission.
We have a motion,
He'll go to the
Board of Adjustment
next.
meeting.
Board of Adjustment.
So he can actually provide these, just so we have this straight and on the record, he can provide these things to Gary so they have them at the Board of Adjustment and doesn't have to come back here for them.
Oh, it doesn't? Oh,
No,
okay.
Okay.
As long as he's met those.
As long as
he's-
they're met
right.
prior to the Board of
As long as
Adjustment.
I've met the requirements, they're gonna be provided to me by the zoning staff.
Yeah.
And then we can move forward to the Board of Adjustments with the county
I didn't
commission.
do
that.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
At least
Assuming
that
it's
is the
approved.
motion that's on the table for that.
yes. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Roll call vote when you're ready.
Parker,
Yes.
Flemish,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Jessica, you have a copy of the things that we're asking of him? You have a list of those?
Yes.
All right. So, the next tower, I would like to make a suggestion that he provide to us the same things that were missing on the first part for this tower as well. The tower, okay, first we need to let you speak about where it is, I'm sorry.
This tower is located on the north side of Highway 52, approximately 1/2 mile east of 435th Avenue. It is in an existing substation, and the purpose of this tower is a similar purpose, but a little bit different in that we are providing upgrades to the existing distribution substation for SCADA improvements to benefit our member cooperative BUI Electric.
So just for everybody, this tower is just off the end of the dam, where there's a substation there behind the Corps of Engineers property, in front of Marina Del Estates is where this is.
That is correct.
So this is a little closer to some more significant residential development.
It is zoned residential.
Did you go to one?
R2, I believe.
All right. Are there any questions for him before I ask for public input so they have the chance to have their say? It's 9 o'clock at night. I want them to get a chance to speak or ask questions. Does anybody have a problem with that? We will have lots of time for discussion. Okay? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask a question or discuss this proposed application? For another tower, you said 24 feet?
This one is 60 foot.
64 feet, I apologize.
60.
60 feet, even
You got a little
in the middle
antenna on
of
top
a
of it.
substation
Yes,
that
it
is
is.
already in existence.
I'm not exactly sure, it doesn't show on the plans how
Right.
tall that antenna is on top of the tower, but I can certainly get that information.
Okay.
I think it shows that the elevation, it looked to me that that's at the top of the tower, the antenna. That was the only one that I questioned.
Right.
Not noticing any other one, but that was when I saw that.
Yeah, and this is a more traditional style of tower, and they show the top bracket on the third detail page. I'm assuming that the bracket is what's gonna hold that antenna on the top of the tower, and that the length of the antenna is probably gonna depend on the frequency. But I can sure get that information so we can provide an accurate height overall for the tower.
With the scale, that tower looks like it's probably gonna be 4 or 5 feet compared to the rest. Everything else is to scale, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Did we have any contact in the zoning office at all with any of the notified people? Anybody?
Lots of phone calls, but no complaints. People
Okay.
just wanted
Just
to-
people call and ask?
Where it was and those kind of things.
You know how tall that existing tallest structure in that substation is by any chance?
The existing, the high-side structure, you mean, on the north side of the substation? We had that between 35 and 40 feet. For those
Okay.
older subs, we don't actually have the original steel drawings anymore.
Okay.
I talked with one of our substation employees today, and they said that in that era, they were about 35 feet, and then it's on a few feet of foundation. The adjacent transmission structures are probably a lot closer to what the tower's actually gonna be. The poles coming in to feed the substation
It does,
are gonna
yeah.
be in that 60-foot AGL.
Yeah, it has some really tall poles coming in,
Right.
so 50 footers at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not going to be a significant change from the elevation that is already being, that's
No.
already in existence right there.
Right, yeah.
It's not gonna be twice as tall as all the structures there. It might be a little bit taller, but it'll
Probably
be
about 20 feet tall.
20 feet taller. I thought you said you had some poles in there that are about 50 to 60 feet already?
Not within the substation, coming,
That feeds the
that
substation.
Oh,
feeds the
that
substation.
feeds the
thank you, yes.
substation.
Yeah, that
Okay.
feeds the
All right, I see
substation.
what you're
So it's
saying.
bringing the overhead transmission line into the substation.
Okay.
Those
All
structures
right.
are gonna be in that 50 to 60 foot above ground level.
Okay. All right. So it's just the poles that were 60 feet. All right, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this issue or ask a question? Yes? Sure.
Doug Ambrex with East River Electrical, in Nightfall, but was just gonna make one comment on the balloon test. Not exactly sure about the Lancer site, but at the Gavin's Point site, I don't think that would be a feasible test just due to the power lines, substation, so I typically don't like kids flying kites near substations, so I wouldn't suggest the balloon test in that location, unless everything were de-energized and It is difficult to get that substation offline with BY and member consumers.
Okay,
Thanks, Tom.
thank you.
The purpose of actually of the balloon test is just to give the surrounding
Visual
residents
reference.
visual reference.
Yeah.
The poles are gonna be higher than the tower.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot, there are some pretty substantial transmission lines coming across the dam too, which are
Right.
just less than a half a mile away from that site, and they're up on the ridge. They're extremely tall.
Right.
Okay. All right, so the time, last call for the public or anyone to make a comment or ask a question. We'll close the public part of the meeting then, and any more discussion before we go through?
Basically, I think the only thing different from this motion other than that would be provide the actual height of what that tower's gonna
Okay.
be with, the others, and all the other comments that you're gonna,
Are gonna be
respond.
the same,
There's gonna be the same, basically. The only difference to me would be is the height of the actual.
height of the tower.
Okay.
And also exempting it from the balloon test for safety reasons. Okay, so we will exempt you from the balloon test on this tower, and then you will get us an accurate height with that antenna, please, and then the bullet points that he already has on his list. Is that acceptable to everyone else?
The only other question that I have is
Sure.
the fall of the tower compared to the other site you have.
Oh,
Right.
good point. Fall
Yes,
zone.
we are short on the east property line. In my diagram, I have a 30-foot, I believe,
32 foot.
32-foot, thank you, setback from the east property line, which in this diagram is the quarter line. If you look at the adjacent property, there isn't anything on it. There's nothing for it to fall on, and all our other dimensions were well clear of the 60-foot fall radius, I think. So admittedly, yes, on the east property line, we are within fall distance of the adjacent property.
Okay. But it's vacant.
It'll be okay.
Right.
Well, we
What's on
did-
the- What is on, what to the east there, that, what is it?
He said it's a vacant lot.
It is open now. It
Oh,
it came
okay.
before us, and it was
Changed.
platted out, and they were gonna put some townhouses and stuff in there. That didn't happen for whatever reason. The guy came in and got, platted it out, and I don't remember if he needed variances and different things. And that's been quite a while ago, because that's when I was on it before, so it was previous to 2010, but that never came true or never happened. But the long-term plan for that was residential. And I don't know what to say about the lack of fall zone on that side.
Doesn't mean it's not always going to be vacant.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
It's expensive property to stay vacant, you know?
But there would be setbacks.
Yeah,
You know.
we couldn't put the setbacks on the owner that owns the land.
No.
Because of the fall zone of his
No,
house.
no,
they
but
would
I'm
have
just saying the
standard yard
setbacks would,
requirements of their own.
would use up part of that.
So is there any way to move your tower to meet the setback requirements?
Not with the current configuration of the substation, no. As that's where we're restricted, is on the east side. So as you look at the site plan there, it's placed immediately north of the control building, which it needs to be to shorten the leads. And due to the ground grid, if we were to move the tower to the other side of the substation, we wouldn't be able to get conduit through to the control building where we need it.
We have the same, excuse me, the same path site study, so we know we need the height we have.
My understanding we have an engineering path study on this one as well. I was informed by our comm group that we were gonna need a 60-foot tower at Gavin's Point, so I would expect they would be able to provide that.
It just bothers me a little bit to see part of your fall zone on somebody else's property. If it was out in the middle of nowhere, it would be one thing, but, you know, it's in a place where property is at a premium, price-wise, you know, so.
Do you know the owners of that property at all? Would they-
Not personally, it was listed on the GIS site as a development company. But we did send out, I mean, between the two towers, we send out 118 notification letters. So whoever owns that property should have received a notification letter. We didn't get any returns on our letters that we sent out. So I didn't get any comments from this adjacent over. I received a couple phone calls, just like the zoning staff was saying, more just curious about what the purpose and use for these were. This location for the tower, this is where I was told that we needed to put this tower. I can't really speak to it other than when I asked why, it was concerned with getting the proper conduits and wiring into the control house from the tower location.
Well, it's probably the easiest place to run.
Clearly the easiest.
Yeah,
place,
yeah.
yes.
So.
Yes. Whether or not it's
I
impossible.
haven't worked for a utility company for 20 years. I know they always pick the easiest spot first, less concrete and less conduit. But maybe it would be worthwhile to find out whether there's an alternative site that would meet our setback requirement. That's what
Well,
I'm-
this person would have been notified you were putting a tower, but he wouldn't have been notified that part of the fall zone would have ended up on his
Correct.
property.
Yeah.
No, and I
Exactly.
don't believe the height of the tower was on the notification letters.
Yeah.
I think it just said for a communications tower.
Well, it looks like this piece of property you own here is 184 feet. So you would have room to, you know, move this a little bit to a different spot. You know, I know that might not,
If there is equipment already in the way.
well, you know, and it's east to west, 185, north to south, 217. I guess, you know, nobody wants it to fall on their own stuff, but
I'd certainly be a lot happier seeing
Either
the
of-
fall zone at least within the setbacks of the residential that could or would go on there.
Right, or at the very least, something from that.
or an
developer.
easement or something, you know, could you have a fall easement from the neighbor? I don't know.
I'm assuming you could,
But,
but that wouldn't come for free
you know,
It's
either.
there, he's gonna have to have his driveway on that side.
It's one thing to fall in the yard, it's another thing to fall where there's a structure allowed to be
Right.
built.
Right.
And hopefully we never have one fall and we don't have to ever actually physically address this. but-
Well, it still needs to be addressed. I mean, you can't just
You can't ignore it.
ignore it. I mean,
You can't ignore it.
if it was a 100-foot tower like last one or 95, it would be, you know, it wouldn't make any difference if it's over, if it falls over the fence, it falls over the fence, right? And that was the other thing, not to jump off that topic, but is there a different, the reason why, this letter says that all the real property owners were notified within 1,320 feet, not 2,640?
Because it's a
Okay.
different zoning
Residential.
district.
So that, okay.
It's in residential zone, so you don't have to notify as
But the
far.
ordinance makes a differentiation?
It does.
Yep.
Okay.
Because the amount of people that you would notify going out to the half would be, you know,
Astronomical.
way expanded. So
Okay.
when you get into the residential zones, you notify less distance away from the project because you're still notifying more
Okay.
people.
I just didn't
90%
see
of the
it, yeah, I was
time.
reading through, I just saw 2640 in the ordinance on 18, or in 2515, but. So, where do I go to find it? Can you, somebody help me out with that?
Go to the, which
So,
residential zone are you
I'm
in?
in, notice of public hearing, in 2515. So,
Oh, in 2515,
Yeah,
that's,
we're-
that would be different in the tower, I guess. I'm talking about the notice that would be in the residential zones themselves would be less. So we may have a discrepancy between the
Okay,
the
well,
tower
that's-
notification and the notification of the CUP in the zoning district itself.
Section 7.
I see
So
what
if
you're
you go to-
saying. I see what you're
Yeah.
Right,
saying.
section 7, and it would be,
Right.
we may have met the one for the,
yeah, I'm just going by the
So
tower
could you-
part of the ordinance, which says.
Could you speak to the person who developed the site plan and ask if it would be feasible to move it, would you say 32 feet? What's the setback on a side yard? Is it,
It's the height plus 10%.
Right.
She's
But,
talking about the
no, I mean
residential
for the
setback would be
residential.
10
Oh.
feet.
I thought it was 10 feet, yeah, on the
10
side
feet.
yard.
10 feet on the side yard and residential.
Okay,
Or
Be 10, 30, 20, 10.
kid playing.
30 in the front, 20 in the
8
back,
feet
10 on
from
either
the
side.
lot line.
yeah.
So the requirement for the
That's-
tower setback is the height of the tower plus 10%?
Height plus 10%.
So it'd be 66 feet.
Yep.
So I'd
So,
be more
if-
than happy to go back and
And see if
let them
that's
know that
possible.
if the commission is not comfortable with.
I have to say, if this was my property, I'd be concerned.
Right,
You know,
right.
I really would.
right,
66 feet,
If you
if
could
that
move
includes
it-
the antenna.
Correct.
right.
So
Because you
probably
said right
more
now
like
you're looking
70,
at about
75.
32.
Depends on what the antenna,
feet
I don't know what the
overlap.
antenna is.
Neither do I.
I'm not gonna say a number, because I don't know what, yeah,
It's
so,
understandable.
just
10%
considering,
plus the height of the tower,
considering the antenna, right?
Yeah.
the total height of the tower with the antenna.
I don't know if anybody else has any other concerns, but that's
That was the only thing that stuck out and
the one I had.
Well, it looks like what Greg said
That was
is,
my only other concern was
it
that.
is that notification, because it doesn't differentiate between agriculture or residential. It just says 2640 for everybody
In the tower section.
in the
it does,
tower
yeah.
section. But, you know, and I get both points. It's residential, but it doesn't say that in, you know, to Greg's point, it doesn't specifically say that on the towers.
So you're
So
saying
there's a discrepancy in.
We may have to expand the notification that we do
Yes.
on this one anyway,
Yeah.
because we have to meet the tower notification. Because the conditional uses for a tower, it's gonna have a different notification than
Mm-hmm.
other things in that zoning district, which are half as far, so. But you met it with the first one.
Right.
Right,
We were provided a list of landowner addresses to
Yeah.
mail letters to. That's who we mailed the letters to.
okay.
So we need to go back and do a larger scope of notification.
I think so, yeah. Gary will,
Looks like, wait a minute, but.
that's the way it appears to me.
What's your thought on page 161, Gary? First paragraph.
I don't know if he knows you're talking to him, James.
Page 161, section 2515, first paragraph, it says, "In order that all nearby landowners are notified, the applicant shall notify all landowners whose property is located within 2,640 feet of any property line of the lot or parcel in which the new wireless telecommunications facilities are proposed to be located." You know, it doesn't differentiate between residential and ag.
Yeah, I agree with the way it's currently stated. We'll extend that out.
Okay,
So does that mean we have to come back and have another public hearing? Because if they've moved.
I think we're gonna have to for a variance unless it's moved.
But even without that, if they say we're gonna move the tower, we're gonna take care of that. If we send out another 1,320 feet worth of letters, then those people get with it.
Yeah.
They wanna
well, they
come in
get
and have their
notified
say.
at the Board of Adjustment. Aren't they
Yeah,
re-notified
I
or
don't
not?
like that idea.
No?
No.
I
Okay.
guess we
so.
could
Alright.
do,
No,
we could
we
do a
need to-
continuance, you know, and then send out more notification, or do you want to just start from?
I think you would start from scratch.
I would
mean,
just
don't-
start from scratch, cause it's
I don't
either gonna
wanna,
be a
you know,
variance request or the
yeah.
site's gonna
I could, yeah, that's
be
a good,
altered.
that's a good point.
And then we'd just
Yeah,
be
you're
starting
right.
over anyway.
The site is starting over anyway, if
That's
we move the site,
the cleanest, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, I think in the long run, what we have to do is deny this for you tonight and start over with a new application, so the notification is correct. So you're technically starting over with a new application and not.
Yep.
And if he changes the site plan, then the site
Yeah,
plan is correct.
it's possible, at least you can address the site plan. You know, if nothing else, I think we need to know, the neighbor needs to know that if this is gonna, fall zone is gonna be on his property, I think he needs to know that. He doesn't know that from the notification that he got. So somehow, the people that currently own this property have to be contacted, you know, and say that this is above and beyond just the notification, you know, part of this may include a fall zone that impacts your property.
But
If it can't be
if they can't
But if you can move it away from there,
I
then it's
mean, if they
different.
can move it 35 feet or whatever is required, you
Yeah.
know, with the impact of the
Yeah.
height of the.
Well, I think that's on them. I mean, maybe they'll contact this company, maybe this company, I say we let them decide what they want to
Yeah,
do.
I think it-
If you come back with us and you move it, that's fine. If you come back and you have a letter and say, these guys don't care,
Yep.
that's fine with us too, but I think to their point is they need to know.
They need to know.
That this is more than just, that piece of
I
property.
don't think the notification that we gave them is
Sufficient.
sufficient for what we're doing. That's what I think, on this one property. Everybody else is affected exactly the way the notification says, except for that property.
So before we go forward denying it and starting over, does this body have authority to waive a application fee, do you feel? Because I feel it was our error that notification was not sent out. So if we do a continuance and resend notification, there's no fee.
Right.
If we deny it and he reapplies, I'm fine. I think that's the cleanest route, but I don't feel that they need to pay for a new application.
I wouldn't have any problem with waiving the fees. I guess I have a problem with the continuance because of
Right.
it really needs to be stopped and started clean with the correct notification, I think.
No, I think that's the right way. I don't know if we've got the authority to waive fees or not.
That's right, do we? Well,
Is there someplace in here that talks about that?
Well, I mean, really, I think the zoning planning board, they do the best they can, but I think it's ultimately the applicant's responsibility to, when they send all of this out,
Well,
I think the county,
He did what he was
the
asked.
county clearly bears some responsibility in the
Yeah.
fact that we
He did what
don't
he was
have a
asked.
clear enough laid out
Sure.
process for him
Yeah.
to really get going here. We're in transition with a lot of things, and, there is a bit of public relations that goes in this business too, and you want to treat them as well as you can, and the
I
fact
agree.
is some of it is our fault, so.
I agree with that.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think we should make them pay again. If we can avoid that,
Yeah.
is that an administrative thing that Gary can take care of,
I think so.
You're talking about just the application for
We could-
conditional use permit.
We can
right?
certainly
Right.
make a motion for it if we need to.
Well, we're talking about getting it the same point it is right now.
I think
Whatever it's
if he
costing to
was-
get here, we don't wanna
Yeah.
make them pay again to get here.
Right.
No.
Sure.
I think if it was already granted and he held the conditional use, it's his, the holder's
Sure,
responsibility.
Sure. I understand.
But as we're getting through the process, we bear some of that.
All right, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Well, as a group, are we still able to make decisions and be an enforcement group like we were granted on October 4th? Are we still have that power, or did that power get pulled from
That
us?
was until Mr. Vedder's position was filled or he filled.
I guess we were never really notified, or nobody ever really told us. That was kind of a gray area. And I've had a couple of people ask me about that. They said, are you guys still an enforcement group? I said, I don't believe so, but I said I'd bring it up.
Well, I think to an extent we've always been, you guys heard cases in the past on, like the Towel property and the Googles that had a shed. You took action for enforcement on those in the past too. It's an advisory board.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a different level that we have. We're just advisory. We were for a short time, we were actually enforcement, now we're just advisory.
But we've got a decision on this now. I guess we need to.
Well, if we are going to
Can we get public
deny it, what I would like to do
Yes,
is lay out
I-
for him
a couple
what we
times.
want from him, what we're talking about. I don't think we need to go through all the stuff again, but the things
No.
that were concerning to us, for me in specific, was the fall zone. And for Greg and some of the others, the notification. Those two things need to be fixed.
Right,
In addition to all the other items
Until
from
the other items, right.
right.
And
The same
correct.
items from
The same
before.
list that came with the first
With
one
the first
would
item.
still be stuff we would want, but as we would go through this the next time, you're gonna
Minus the
have
balloon
met
test.
whatever it was, P, O, and R, and Q,
Yeah.
and whatever else.
Like
So
some-
you're gonna have those for us the next time, so that when we go through those, we don't have to wait and satisfy those between us and the Board of Adjustment. You would have those for us with the next application, next month or whenever it is.
Minus the balloon test for safety reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that was only.
I think in addition to exactly what you guys are saying, and I'd like to see maybe some sort of plan with this one for possibly some screening too, just because of the high level of traffic and potential of residents in there. I'm not saying we have to implement it, but, you know, this is a different animal than the other one is as
definitely
well.
is.
20-foot showing on this whole thing above the other equipment.
Well, you know, and if they come back with a plan that says only this much, so that's different, but, you know, what is gonna be seen from the road, what's gonna be seen from the sides, and we also gotta realize there's a lot of people above this too. And, you know, I'm not saying what their plan has to be, but I think how that affects it, because when, you know, Greg brought that up, the screening on the other one, and we said, you know, this is an agricultural area, we don't have to worry about it. This one is different, so just some sort of plan. I'm not saying we have to implement it, but.
Well, I think it's a good point. I mean, and a little bit familiar with this from my other work I've done. The issue with, even if there's towers above it, like the first one's out, it was out in the field, out in the more of a rural agricultural area. But this one being where there is a lot more traffic and is more noticeable, people tend to look,
Exactly.
you know, not higher than 10 feet. If you're out in your car or whatever that height is, you're not looking up 60 feet. So even if there is accessory structures over top of the, or other structures over top of the fence,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily see them. If you put a green buffer or something that blends in with the background, it's either, it looks like there's some
Yeah, this one has
evergreens or
some pretty good screening from
other
the
trees
cedar
around the other
trees from
side. It would
from the
blend.
west.
When you look
Yeah.
across that landscape, you wouldn't
Yeah.
notice it so much. That might be more aesthetically pleasing. I'm not sure. I think it's a point. It's a good point to be made.
Well, we
Without
didn't
going out
include
there
that
and
with
looking
the
at it,
first
I would want to see it myself to say, do we actually need that or not? Or maybe the applicant would just agree to do it. I don't know, but it's,
Well, I would think from the east side, it would be, because in front of this is the federal kind of boneyard, where they store rock and dirt. And they have actually planted some trees along the front of theirs. But, you know, the front of this is not visually a nice piece of property. It's a boneyard. It's dirt and gravel and
well, I see
rock
there's
and
no
stuff. Yeah.
swimming pools or anything.
No.
I see that. Yeah.
But to the east, you know, it is development property to the east and to the northeast.
Yeah.
So I could see it's possible that we may be talking about some screening on the property line or something, as far as some kind of shrubbery or something like that, you know.
So, to be clear, are you asking us to bring and present a screening plan?
That would be
Well-
great. At this point, I don't know that I'm asking for that. What I'm telling you is that we may be asking for that.
Okay.
Some kind of screening. I'm not talking about screening like woven stuff on the fence screening. I'm talking like shrubbery on the property line type screening, possibly on this one, just to screen it from view, you know, the bottom, you know, if you had cedars or pine trees or something like that.
Well,
You're never gonna block the tower part of it.
Is
but
it
the-
for us to decide the screening necessarily? If
It is. It is. It's
Okay.
right. It's in the ordinance. Yeah. It's,
Okay, so
it's
we
up to
want
us.
to decide right now.
It's up to us to ask for it.
What specific screening or
I'm
Not
gonna
that
say
specifically.
I'm not gonna request any, cause
No,
the
not that
substation's
specifically.
existing, and if the developer wants screening, they've got room to put, that would be my take, I guess.
My take on it would
Just for
be,
discussion, I guess.
you know, we have a little bit of obligation to the property owners when there's a change. Now, I'm not expecting that it's gonna be blocked, so you're not gonna see the substation that's already there. But there is a bunch of other construction and a tower and a base and all that stuff going on. So it may not be too much to ask to have a row of trees on the east property line or something like that. And usually when this stuff happens, it comes from the neighbors coming in and asking for it. And so oftentimes what we do will be based on the public's input. Now, I'm just thinking we may hear more public input on this once the direct neighbor to the east of you realizes how close the tower and stuff is, that he may want a little bit of screening or something if he asks for it.
If we find that we need to keep it that close.
Correct.
I think from what I'm hearing, I think probably the best course of action for us would be to come back with a screening plan to present.
That would be great.
That way,
Yeah.
I mean, we've had these requirements in other counties. We're
Yeah.
required to screen our entire substation
Mhm.
with, we've had anywhere from privacy fence to shrubbery and landscaping, things like that. So I'm fairly confident that we can come back with a
Okay.
screening plan for this substation.
I think, you know, you've already got some coverage to the west and the northwest, and I'm not even concerned about to the highway on the south because of the type of land that's south of you. But I do know that to the east and northeast of you, it may be possible that we would want some.
And if you can possibly move it over so the fall zone falls on your own property, that would be a great benefit also.
Of course, and being that the setback for the tower is defined in section 25, so if we were not able to relocate the tower within the substation to comply with that setback, it would require variance, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that would be, if I did come back and I was told, no, we can't move it, that's where it's gotta be, go try again, I'm gonna need a variance
You're
in
gonna need a
addition to the
variance
conditional
anyway.
use.
Variance,
so-
and with that likely something from that property owner, I would.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions for us?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Sure, sure, absolutely, please.
Just give a little bit of thought on that fall zone. I don't know if it's possible or, I've never seen it done. You know, quite often towers are guided, but in this instance, it's a freestanding tower and it's not designed to be guided, but I'm not so sure. We maybe couldn't tether it to the high side structure, which is at a level of about 40 feet. And if we tethered it over at about the roughly the 40-foot zone, you know, if it were to fall at the base,
You'd pull it.
It would pull it and drag it and keep it within the property. Now, it's something that, and like I say, I don't know if this is allowed by the tower design or is feasible, but would that be something that, if it were tethered, keep it within our property?
Good idea.
Well, I do know that, you know, we've had the fall zones change when things were tethered. It definitely changes the fall zone, because they can be towered to fold or collapse or spin like he's talking about, so that it falls within the property. So if that was the case, I think we would look at it differently. If I don't know if this tower even allows for that.
Yeah, and
You
I'm
know.
not sure either. And that's, we haven't ever done that. You know, it's either a guide or it's totally unguided,
But if that's something your engineer or your can lay that out and give us a piece of paper on that gives us a fall zone that does not impact a neighboring property, then to me, that would take away, you know, any need for a variance or to have to worry about moving the tower over if you
Right.
can guide the tower and show that it can fall without falling on impacting another property.
I would suspect
Solution.
we would still need a variance.
We would still be in violation of the
Of
setback.
The fall
2513,
The fall zone.
but I think that
But it
would
would
support the
Make
variance.
it a
Yeah.
a more acceptable situation if there was a way that we could mechanically prevent that tower from
Yeah.
Right.
having the ability to fall on the adjacent property.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
So I think what this is gonna require is we're gonna have to deny this and maybe have language in it, in the motion, to allow them to come back.
Without having to pay an additional fee for the CUP.
You know, I don't know how you'd,
I don't know how that works.
Could I,
Well, you could put it in the
Creative
finding of
argument.
facts. You could put it in the findings of fact, could you not?
It's a denial. You
Right,
know what I mean, you're
Yeah.
saying that, Christopher. it's
As a
denial.
recommendation, it's not in the motion, though, is what I'm saying. It wouldn't be in the motion.
We've got the authority to deny.
To-
I don't know that we've got the authority to waive.
Well, we can put it as a recommendation.
Yeah.
They can say yes or no, but That's all we do is give
No
recommendations.
guidance on that from the state's attorney's department?
Doesn't seem like there's gonna be any,
If I may, I really appreciate the effort to help mitigate the cost of this to us, but we don't have a problem paying another
fee.
application fee.
Okay, there you go.
If
Problem
it's an
solved.
issue if it's an issue of whether or not.
The taxpayers of
yeah, I
Yankton,
like
thank
this bill
you.
just went up.
There goes a load of gravel.
Yep.
Well, that's
right.
that's kind of helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna move.
All right, with that, then I'd make a motion to deny this permit.
Okay, maybe
Based
we
on-
put
Do-
in there
can we-
why.
Based on,
Based on the fact that section, or that part of the fall area is on the neighboring
25.
property.
2513,
Yeah,
yeah.
2513, lot size and setbacks, and the fall area is on a neighbor's property.
And then the notification.
And due to section 2515 notification, improper notification.
I'm gonna second that.
Okay, roll call vote when you're ready.
Clemish,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Hanson,
yes.
Harper.
Yes.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your consideration.
You're
I
welcome.
will be back.
All right.
All right,
See ya.
good.
Thank you.
All right.
I was hoping I'd be off this board before we had to get into that tower ordinance.
Well, now, our 7:15 thing is done. Next item on the agenda. I better put my notes on here.
Good catch on that setback.
Diane and James Johnson, plat and variance. Applicant is requesting a variance to reduce lot size requirements in an ag district. Said property is legally described as government lot 6, lying north of the 116th line, in the southwest quarter, and all government lot 4 except parcel Parcel what?
Doesn't say.
No, it doesn't.
Say on the-
It's truncated on Beacon is why it didn't get put in here.
Okay, all right. And the southeast quarter, the northeast quarter, and the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter in section 12, T93 North, range 55 West, hereinafter referred to as Gayville and Mission Hill South Townships, County of Yankton, State of South Dakota. Do you have someone to speak on this request?
My name's Tim Cookta. I'm representing the owners as their agent, doing business as Farm and Ranch Company. The owners are non-residential owners, and I guess the reason we're asking for a variance is it doesn't meet your 20-acre requirement. And for their sake, for the owner's sake, it's more or less for economic reasons. This is a strip of timberland right along the Jim River. And it's basically, they own the other 450 acres around this, which is all cropland. And like I say, it's for economic reasons. They are non-residents, and so they don't enjoy the recreational benefits of this strip of land, so they are requesting a variance to sell approximately 10 acres, a little more than 10 acres there, which is pretty much timber.
And what is the purpose of the 10-acre lot?
They're just not able,
Yeah, what
What are they
planning
planning to do with it?
Who? The buyer or the seller?
Either or.
Yeah,
Are they selling it for, what are they selling it as a, are they gonna sell it as a lot then?
Yes.
That's their intention?
Yes.
As a housing lot, as just a lot, or
Just whatever the buyers,
wanna do with 11 acres right along the Jim River?
that's right.
Okay, okay.
They have
so
no use
what,
for it,
what
they're
do
paying.
the people that want to buy plan to do with the lot?
The people that are, the proposed buyers on the lot adjoin this parcel. And like I say, it's for economic reasons. They're paying taxes on this piece of land. They're getting no income off it because they can't enjoy the benefits, which are pretty much recreational benefits, so.
But you still haven't answered my question. What
Right.
do the
I'm sorry.
intended buyers plan to do with it?
What do the buyers plan to do with it?
Correct.
The adjoining owner is all timber, so I would assume it's recreation, hunting. The owners to the south, do you have a plat there?
We do.
It's
The south, right along the highway there where there's that
Yeah.
big chunk that's all timber, that's the owners, that's the buyers.
Proposed buyers.
Proposed buyers.
Yeah.
Who owns it?
It's titled, I don't know how that's titled, but they're taking title to this as Big Bucks,
Big Books LLC.
the Nesses own that property.
So technically, they would have access, ingress and egress through their other property when they buy it. Is that
Well,
correct? Or is there, are you creating an easement on the
Yeah.
south line, on the 16th line? or-
Yes, there's a 25-foot, it's not an easement, it's deeded. It will be deeded,
So it will go with the property?
Hard to see
Yeah.
on there, but.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's Larry Ness? Which,
Aaron.
I would guess his sons
Aaron.
probably. I don't know who's all part of Big Bucks LLC it is.
So the strip along the south, the 16th line, that strip is actually part of the lot.
Yes, it'll be deeded with that.
Wonder how much of it's still there?
I'm glad you asked. I originally started out trying to sell 20 acres there,
Yeah.
which I called water and land. Well, when I talked to Mr. Week, the surveyor, he said, anything in the river, you cannot deed.
Yeah, it doesn't belong to you.
But your assessor is assessing me 7 acres of
Mm-hmm.
assessment on 7 point some acres of water.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works, but
Well, it used to have a nice tapered bank. We used to pull up there and go fishing, but now it's about 14 foot straight up and down. So,
so what's left there of
you
that?
gotta have a really long fishing line.
What's left there of that 20 acres is approximately 10.6 acres roughly.
that's the question I had, was the access.
Do they own the land to the west of that, between there and the Jim River Road? There's the plot thing here shows 79 acres that they own.
Yes, they own that 80 plus acres there to the west of that. The Johnsons do. And then they own about 350 acres to the east of the
On the other side
junkyard.
of it, yeah.
But they don't wanna sell 20 acres. They only wanna sell 10.7.
Yeah, they don't want to sell any cropland. The rest is cropland. They just want to get rid of the liability, basically, of everybody hunting on that parcel. They have no control over it, and they're paying taxes on it, getting no revenue off of it. They would just soon it be in a better owner's hands, such as the adjoining owner, can supervise it a little better.
It is tough owning some of these properties when you're a non-resident landowner, because people can easily go on Beacon and find out
Yeah.
where non-resident landowners own huntable property, so.
But technically, they can sell this 10 acres without anything. It's up to the next person that buys it. If he wants to build a lot on it, he's approved for the burden. of
It's
proof.
written goofy, it would be a variance both ways.
Yeah, technically to create the plat, you'd have to have the variance.
If they're gonna plot it, but I mean, you know, just, if they were just gonna sell 10 acres of land off,
I don't think you can,
It's a
because,
separate deed, though.
Because you
I don't
gotta
think
have it deeded, you gotta have it platted
Yeah,
before
I think
you
gotta
can
plat
sell
it.
it.
I don't think they'll-
yeah.
And to get it platted, it has to go through this process.
minimum yard requirements.
Yeah, minimum lot requirement says it's gotta be 20 acres without a variance.
I really don't think something like this is gonna have a house built on it. If you guys have been north of the river there, there's huge, north of 50, there are huge chunks of the bank falling off all the time. I mean, it would be at your peril to do something. You know, this isn't a big chunk of ground, it's just a little strip of
Sliver, yeah.
trees.
Right.
It's, what's the widest? It's 100 foot, 150 foot wide at its widest, is what my map is saying.
And it's also in the floodplain.
Yeah,
too, so-
yeah. So
But what kind of hardships are they claiming that they need to have this, so they can sell this piece of property? I don't know if we want to just go and have little strips of property sold off every 80 around. I just don't think that's right.
well, look across the river, there's 1, 2,
Yeah, that was all pre-zoned.
well, 3, 4, 5. And then, you know, and then you go north just a little ways, there's an entire housing development with 1, 2, 3, you know, at least 2, 3, 4 dozen,
They're in floodplains too.
yeah,
I mean, you know, so.
True.
Who says that they're not gonna come in there and clear out a bunch of trees at some point, and try to get housing units in there? And I'm just not for doing this ag land and changing this classification into this. I just don't like this.
Well, I guess to me, this is a good example of the problem with the 20 acres is it doesn't really recognize real ag land and, you know, land that really doesn't have a significant agricultural use. You know, if this land was producing crop, they wouldn't be selling it, plain and simple.
But
If
there's
they
a lot
could-
of land, I got land that doesn't produce crop, but I'm not selling it. There's wasteland on my land.
You know, and that's your choice, but not everybody makes that choice, and not everybody is, you know, these guys aren't even they're not even here to enjoy this piece. They're just taking money off of it.
That's their choice not to live
Yeah,
there.
they're just taking money off of it as
No, just
as
because they live in
profitable
Florida,
land.
that's not our problem.
I'm not asking you for a variance for a building permit, I'm asking you for a variance on the 20 acre ordinance. You can always
And he
deny
just,
that building permit. on
well, yeah,
the,
because you can't build in a
Not
floodplain.
always.
If it's in the floodplain, they can't build there.
You know.
Like I said, there's houses on the other side.
can't build at all?
No, that's not true. You just have to, you have to build to certain specifications to be above the flood number.
You'd have to
Oh,
be a
okay.
foot above the base flood elevation.
So you could build something.
Significant parts of the city of Yankton are in the floodplain. You
Well,
just have to.
I guess I already knew the answer to the question.
I mean, if this guy, so this, the same guy who buys this has that property just south, he's got, you know, 20 acres and then what is this other one is less than that. I don't know what it is. I mean, if there's nothing stopping him from getting the bulldozer and bulldozing all of that and putting in, that'd be a way better housing development than this little sliver up north. I mean, it's obvious to me that this is gonna be used for deer hunting and other types of hunting.
Is that proposed, sorry. if
No,
you're
go
not
ahead,
finished.
I'm finished, go ahead.
The strip that's proposed to be parceled off, does that meet up with that 7 acres to the south, do you know? Or is it gonna be separate?
No, it joins it.
It would adjoin that
Yeah.
7 acres. There.
Well, this is,
Well,
here, right here, this is what he's talking about, this little chunk, right?
yeah.
So, yeah,
This little sliver.
here's,
Oh, I don't have to.
Oh, that
right here.
Not this
It's
little.
gonna cut, it's gonna go right.
That's why that had that goofy jog in it, okay.
It's platted into different parcels, but one owner, one parcel number on the whole thing.
So if it was done that way, that could all be turned into one.
Well, yeah,
Well,
I mean,
comment.
that would be more, if he
Combining
would,
it all, that's what I was just thinking about.
And that's moving toward compliance.
What was that, Greg?
I think Joe was in the initial thought, so I'll let him explain.
Right to the, do you have the proposed plat,
this one,
Oh,
the way it's drawn? I don't have
Here,
it.
you probably don't have this, if you wanna come over here, I'll show you this on Beacon.
no, this one here?
Yeah, I'll come show you.
Okay,
what
so
it's
on the
talking
south portion of that, that same person owns 7 acres, but which is then tied to another 20-some acres,
In that little corner?
25 acres.
So that's, this is 24, this is 7, this is the 10, and I'm not sure what that is, but that's probably close to 10. There, he owns all of that.
So it'd all be a continuous ownership.
Okay, well, while you're thinking about that, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this particular issue? All right. And if you could state your name, sir, for the record, please.
It's Mark Nelson.
Okay.
I was notified of this recently in the mailing that several other property owners received. And I am a little unclear as to why you need a variance when there's no housing involved because of the 20-acre rule. Originally, the way that I had understood it, that you need a variance to build a house on 20 acres less than.
The house doesn't have anything to do with it, it's just the land.
It's actually, but you would need a variance both times.
Yeah. Yeah, section
Which is-
513 in the ordinance says the minimum lot requirements are 20 acres. So if you're creating a new lot, you need 20 acres unless you come to us, like he is right now, and ask for a variance. So that's the purpose of the rule.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jay Cutts, I live near Mission Hill. I have an issue, because your ordinance says it needs 20 acres for a ag district. And this landowner has land to sell. If they wanted to add another 10 acres to it, they can add another 10 acres to it. There's no hardship granted to these people. Just because they don't live here doesn't mean they have a hardship because they don't live here. Yeah, you know, you could sell a strip of land along the Jim River, but that doesn't mean somebody's not going to try to build on it. Right across the river, there's a lot that a guy just bought for a fairly large amount of money. And he still plans to build a house in there, and he lost about 75 feet of ground on the river. Why he'd build a house there, I have absolutely no clue. It'd be a rather foolish thing to do as far as I'm concerned. But people do things for their own reasons. And 2 or 3 of those houses built on the east side were built there after people were told that you really shouldn't put a house on this small, narrow lot because the river could eat your house. They were told and they did it anyway. So just because somebody tells you not to doesn't mean you're not going to do it. Now, whether somebody's going to build a house on this really doesn't make any difference. The 20 acres for an ag district should be followed. There's no hardship for them. They can easily sell it to whoever wants to buy it. These folks are buying it for recreational purposes. Okay, recreational purposes. They could buy the other 10 acres. If they want to do it for hunting, they could buy the other 10 acres and put it in CRP and even have better hunting access. So to say there's not a reason to add the other 10 acres to it is very false. And John, I understand that you want to sell off whatever you can, however you can, but that's just not the way it should be done. If you buy a piece, that we both have different opinions. We know that.
Definitely a different opinion.
But the zoning says 20 acres, and it should stay 20 acres. You've given variances for farmsteads of less than 20 acres. Okay, that's a stretch, but yeah, okay, I'll go with that. This is a bare piece of property. There's no housing development going on it. There's no farmstead anywhere near it. There's no reason that they can't sell it. Then there's no reason they can't sell an extra 10 acres to go along with it to make up the 20. I guess I would be against this. The other problem issue that I would have was the 25-foot access along the north side. 25 feet in that area is not near enough to make a road to access that piece of property. That's a low piece of property, and to build anything to be able to drive into that and have access of any sort was going to take a lot more than 25 feet. So those are the 2 reasons that I would be against this, for those 2 reasons. And if you could, now if you can put it in there that Big Bucks LLC buys the whole thing and puts it all together and it stays all in one chunk, yeah, okay, that would be understandable. But I don't think that's going to be possible to put that in there. I mean, it may be, but I don't know how you'd do it. So as far as that goes, I guess I'd be against this.
Right, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this topic from the public? Okay. Hearing none, time for public input is now closed. Any more discussion from the board?
May I speak to that?
Oh, yes, please do.
25-foot
Sure.
easement. That's not an easement. It's 25 feet added to the proposed buyer's land. So it only extends their property another 25 feet. So as far as access, they can build as big a road as they want on this 25 feet plus how many ever 1,000 feet they have there, I mean, it's not limited to 25 feet. They have their property to build on also, This adjoins their property.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for him?
Joe, were you have an idea about joining them together then, or not?
I don't have it.
No, okay.
No, yeah, that's what I was saying. It was there. If those were joined, those would be a continuous 40, 50 acres.
If you made them join them all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even if they joined it to the parcel.
Even if you join them though, that's a whole different subject than what we're talking about tonight, because they're still only gonna sell them 10 acres. I mean, yeah,
We've done that in the past though, where it's,
I'm not saying it's
where you
right.
say you can't split it then, if you wanna add it to your
Well,
property.
really, I mean, that strip of trees right there, it's best use along a river like that is to maintain trees. You look north, there's a lot of people who've bulldozed out trees and then suffered the consequences of severe erosion and those types of things. I guess for that staying like that, that's probably not the best, that's probably the best use for that piece of ground is to remain in trees.
It's probably been in trees for the last 200 years.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
and that's,
It's not
Yeah.
gonna change, but still, to sell, just like you said, they've got another 10 acres, why don't they buy another 10 acres, so we don't have to make these variances for this? I just don't buy it.
Yeah, it's different than some of these other issues. The same issue we've dealt with other parcels,
Yeah,
because there was
there's
either a house there.
right there that they can sell.
Well, we've had all different ones, right? Farmstead's a different issue because that's specifically mentioned in the ordinance, but
Right.
some of the other issues as far as dividing up properties or splitting them in two and adding them to each other. But this one just, no housing involved at all for no other purpose other than just cash flow, it sounds like. I'm just, what was the term you used? Financial reasons, so.
Yeah, it's
but-
an
but-
economic decision.
But it doesn't sound like a hardship.
It's not a hardship, I wouldn't call it a hardship.
Okay. So I have,
500 acres along the Jim River, I wouldn't be very hard up.
well, I don't know what their situation is, but you can categorize it, I won't, but, yeah, it's a little bit different than what we've talked about as far as some of the other issues, we dealt with this less than 20 acres, you know? So it's hard to justify it. There's no way to, in my mind, there's no way to, I've seen this done in the past, not here, but, you can, where you make a contingency, you can create the lot contingent on it being joined, combine the deeds with the adjacent land. Is that unheard of here, or ever been tried, done before?
They can sell another 5 acres right along the side of that, make that square as ever, to make a dandy good food plot. I mean, if you really want to have deer, you plant corn there, because I've been hunting deer for 3 weeks. You plant corn along there, you're gonna have deer.
You mean add to what they're trying?
Add to that.
Add to
Sell
what they're
another
trying.
5,
Oh, I
talk
see.
them into selling another 5, or another 10 acres, so it gets to be 20 acres.
Well, I was just talking about if they, even
I
if they
don't
want
understand why they won't.
sell that to the adjoining landowner, but then make a contingent upon that being joined together, so there's not two separate lots, two separate deeds, it's all one. And then it would be over the 20 acres and.
I guess have we ever done that before? I don't, you ever do that, John? Yeah,
I mean, combining deeds isn't hard.
Yeah, but, well, if you look at the property
Administrative
the guy owns, he owns, right now, he owns three separate, and only one of those 3 parcels
But it's a
is
proposed
actually.
buyer, Dan, it isn't
well,
a for sure thing. We're all shooting
Yeah.
that's a whole different subject.
Well, I'm saying what
This
he-
is just about giving a variance for letting this land go. That's what this is
Sure.
all about tonight.
What I'm saying though is the land that this individual who's purchasing, the land that he already owns, he has 3 pieces,
parcels.
and one of them's 7 acres, one of them's 10 acres, and one of them is 24.3 acres. 2 out of the 3 he already has doesn't comply with our zoning ordinance. So, you know, to add another piece that's larger than the 7-acre piece that he already owns is that such a big deal? And when you're looking at along these, especially the James River, there's a lot of weird sized lots just because of the way that channel has moved over the years, and not just in this area. Go north of there, there's odd-shaped lots. South of there, there's odd-shaped lots. They're all over. If you go south, there are ways along, Heine's, there's all kinds of odd ones.
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I'm finished. Go ahead.
But is that the, I guess it all comes down to vision, right? And what the county wants to see going forward, and that's why we're here. So if
Well, it's all our decisions, you know.
Well, that's what I mean, but it's so, just, I have a hard time thinking, okay, or looking at what's there now and based on the decision on that, because maybe that's not what we want to see going forward.
Sure.
So is that, you know, and I guess that's what I try to look at every time, is that really, you know, if it met the ordinance, it wouldn't, we wouldn't be here right now, so it doesn't, so when you start giving out variances, does it meet the criteria? And I don't know, I guess the criteria don't mention, well, does it look like the lots next to it? Doesn't mention that in there. It talks about size and reasons for the variance, not how does it look compared to the neighborhood. Because the neighborhood might not be the model going forward that the county, the people of the county want to see. I don't know. And considering the district that it's in, we keep coming back to this, in an ag district, 20 acres is a problem, but that's a problem, every one of these applications I've seen in regards to the 20-acre lot size is for different reasons, you know? So this one is, I think, first one I've seen since I've been on board that is just purely to sell it for money. And there's nobody living there, nobody doing anything with it other than it's just pure financial, which is fine, you know, God bless America, but it's hard to justify in the ordinance why that's okay. So that's my thought.
I'm sure the owner wouldn't object to you granting a variance contingent upon the buyer being the adjoining owner or naming the buyer in that variance. I'm sure they wouldn't object to that. In other words, allow the variance contingent upon the property being conveyed to Big Bucks LLC. I'm sure they wouldn't have a problem with that.
It would still be a separate lot unless they're combined with the other existing property, so that wouldn't, I guess my concern with it overall wouldn't be, well, it wouldn't change that concern, because it would still be a separate lot that could be sold separately for whatever purpose.
Didn't we put that on, what was her name? She built the house, wanted a smaller lot for financing, and then we put on there that she can make a smaller lot, but then it can't be sold without the parent lot.
Yeah, we did do that.
Deed restriction?
We put a deed restriction on that.
The one where they own the property, but they actually, the farm family there.
They had to,
Sarah Shoemaker.
in order to build a house, they need a smaller lot for bank
Yeah, I remember
finances. And
that part,
was
but I
the-
didn't
that was
remember.
That was the.
I didn't think we put that on there. I think it was talked about, but,
I don't think we did that.
you know, we did something, an analysis through the equalization. There's something like 837 lots in the ag district that don't meet the 20-acre rule. And so I guess I don't see the harm in, you know, one more. There's nearly 1,000 of them out there already. This is probably the best use for that property in my opinion, so I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the variance request.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call vote when you're ready.
Michael,
No.
Schultz,
Yes.
Williams,
No.
Healy,
No.
Yankton,
No.
Harper,
Yes.
Clemish.
Yes.
Motion fails. All right. All right.
You need a motion to deny on this? Do we need to pass the motion to deny, or does this fail just by that? Okay, good.
It failed, so,
There, no.
so they didn't get their approval.
Correct.
Yes. All right. plat, Nelson Wetland Conservation Easement in the northwest quarter of section, or the southeast quarter in section 10, T96 North, Range 54 West.
Well, as when there's flooding occurs, as you know, there's a lot of conservation plats that come into the fold. This one, the only thing unique about this one is actually that this is a pretty new process that's for a wetland bank, actually, that's going through the Farm Bureau. So that's generally, that's literally the only thing that's different than most of all the other conservation easement plats.
We haven't done one.
Do you know what township's this in, Gary?
Bolin,
Long?
Yeah, that's fall. That might be Mission
54? What is it?
9.
Mission District, no. Range 56.
So I'm sorry, I guess I'm a little naive to this. What is the purpose of, do we need to plat this out? It needs to be platted out?
Yes.
And we need to approve the plat?
To get pavement, people have to plat out the easement area with the acreage and everything, and that's what their payout's based on.
And the county, we need to approve the
Correct.
plat?
Just like every other plat,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
While you guys are looking, I'm gonna ask if there's anyone in the audience that wants to speak about this issue. Hearing none, time for public input is closed. There, that's done.
did you find it, Joe? It's in Turkey Valley.
Turkey
Valley,
Valley.
yeah.
Turkey Valley.
So what is this easement? Is it permanently take this into like a wetland easement then?
Correct, and so, just like any, I don't know how many conservation plats you've had come through this area, but up in Brown
I've never
County.
dealt with one of these.
Oh, really?
No,
Okay.
we've never had them come near.
In 2010, 2011, up in Brown County, we had hundreds of acres going to easement.
You were in water central.
And so this was a pretty common occurrence up there for a couple of years. I can't remember how many hundred of acres it ended up being, but it was a regular thing. And it's like a 2 to 3 year process generally to get through the process and to actually get your payment. But there was a lot of people that basically were forced into that situation just because they couldn't farm the area anymore. And so this was another method for them to get some kind of payment for the land.
Now this permanently takes it out of production, is that correct?
Correct.
For the life of the land.
And like I don't have the stipulations in front of me, but I know that they put certain restrictions on it that like it mostly just can be pasture, maybe hunting, certain things like that, but you can't plow it or.
Is it a walk-in area then for like waterfowl?
It could be, it
Yeah,
can
that's
be.
what I was wondering, if they get
Yeah.
some payment from like Ducks Unlimited or
That's
something.
a separate sign
Yeah,
up.
there's-
You can
there's
sign up for
different-
that
there's
separate.
different
on
types,
that, but,
but-
yeah.
Is this on John Nelson's? Is that, I don't even
Yes.
see, it just says
Yes.
Nelson plat, I don't.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm looking on the land here.
Yeah, John Nelson, yep.
John and Joan, yeah. I
John
know
and
them,
Joan.
yeah, very well.
So this would probably be the beginning of, you may see more of these type of plats coming in down the line, but like I said, since the process takes a while, it's quite a while before you
Doesn't have
actually-
to be fenced off, or it's just a determined area.
Correct.
I'll be darned.
So what part of our ordinance do we look at? What, I mean, it's just.
All we're
just the
doing is
basic
just
plat.
approving
You're
a
just
plat.
approving the
Approving the
plat.
plat.
That's all it
That's
is.
all it
Okay, I
is.
just-
NRCS did
That's all it
the
is.
wetland,
Yeah.
part of it, I imagine.
Well, how do we get
And like
around
I
a
said,
20
yeah,
acre?
this one's a
Got
little
variance with
unique
them.
because it went
I
through
don't
Farm
know,
Bureau.
would that be
It's
for the
200
plat?
it's
Would
200
they still have to
acres.
meet the 20 acre?
But it's not a separate parcel though, it's.
It's not a parcel,
Well,
it's
true.
just defines the easement area. So
Yeah,
that
that's,
they
I mean,
can-
that's what I'm having,
so
trying
they
to put
can
this together.
get payment.
We're used to
of
being
the
an
acre.
easement
Yeah,
where
it
anybody
says
can just
right
go
on
in
here,
and pay and have your
conservation
easement
easement.
recorded. You know, my only familiarity was this is I know of some property that some friends have that they sold the federal government a conservation easement on, and the federal government technically controls the property, but the guy
Correct.
still owns the property and farms the property, but there's limits on what he can do as far as even driving on the property. and-
Yeah, there's a
Trees on the
list of
property.
Sure,
things
yeah, sure.
that they're required to meet, and so you can only do certain things with the property.
But that was done on the whole property, there wasn't an easement defined within the property.
I guess that's what I'm trying to, what
So
do we really evaluate it based on? I mean, other than, yeah, there it is, it's not a, but it's not a separate, it's not changing ownership, it's not
No.
being
No.
divided off, so what are we really?
Plot.
I don't-
Just a plat.
No,
It's
it's
just a
just a
plat.
requirement for the easement, and so you just have to go through the process of approving the plat so that they can get their payments and things.
And this if this guy would sell, that easement follows with that land.
Correct.
too.
Correct.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not
Lifetime.
like somebody could come in and flip it
Yeah,
over. It's
yeah.
it's
That's a
stuff.
lifetime deal.
Yeah, Ducks Unlimited does a lot of that where,
Yeah,
yeah, that's,
they do.
it's rock solid.
Can I buy that
What's
plat?
that? What's that?
Can I buy that 14 acres?
You'd have to get a variance.
Actually, you
You
can,
could-
you
you
can
could.
buy that 14 acres, it just has the conservation easement on it when you buy it.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah,
separate,
you would know that there's a
But you
restriction
couldn't buy
on
it
Your
if there's
teeth
no
be up there
access
with
to
the
it,
ducks.
because it's not.
well, that's another thing is
Well,
can
that's
you,
what I'm
can you create a
wondering
parcel
too,
without
is
an
it-
access?
We're not gonna be creating a parcel.
They still own the corridor, so you still have access of the corridor.
Yeah, that's what I mean, this is just like, well, what's the point? I don't.
I think usually
I
with
think
these,
it's
the ones
okay with that.
I've seen is they go and find, this is some sort of wetland slough area that can't be farmed, it's worthless. And so they just square it off and then they get something out of it.
Well, if you're interested, maybe I could have someone come and speak about it at some future meeting.
You know, if you're really interested, I got some swampland in Florida. I can
Oceanfront property.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd make a motion to, if we're done with public comment, motion to approve the wetland conservation easement.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote whenever you're ready, ma'am.
Schultz,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
Clement,
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
And do you have a stack of plats for me to sign?
I do.
Perfect. All right, next item is the administrative items. Discussion on shop houses.
So recently, we've had some further requests for shop home combinations. The first ones that we were getting were accessory building size that we're looking to add home amenities to a portion of the shop and then possibly build homes at a later date. Recently, we've had some inquiries in R1 and R2 that are requesting shop homes that double or triple even the proposed changes to the ordinance. And for example, we had a request in R1, 1 acre parcel, initially requested a home to be built with the shop home, double even double the proposed accessory building size, and then they decided, well, they were gonna drop the building a future home and just build, for example, like a 4,800 square foot shop home. So, even though the ordinance doesn't really address these types of things, you know, I guess I'm just gonna ask where you wanna go with some of this, because basically in that particular case, are we gonna allow just any size that can meet the building setbacks, if they're not building a secondary home? Or, are you concerned about that or not? I mean, you know, a lot of these particular are in the lake areas. I mean, are we gonna want 6,000 square foot metal buildings going up? And what are people gonna start complaining about views and all those kind of things? So I just wanted to bring it to your attention and maybe give some little bit of direction on if you have concerns about this. And, you know, developers can certainly have covenants in areas, but for all these older subdivisions, that ain't gonna do any good if they don't have any restrictions in that regard. Scenario 2 is in R2, where a citizen wants to build a 7,000 plus square foot shop with living quarters and then build a home also, which would require a CUP for 2 dwelling units, again in the lake area. But just want to make sure that everybody's aware of the requests that we're getting, and they were both apparently given the okay last year when they started to discuss it. You know, for us coming in new, I don't know if there's concerns about where this is going or could be going, or if there's anything you feel we can even do about it.
I think that's the biggest problem, and there is concern about it in some places. You know, we had some guys come in and build a great big metal building near my development out at the lake, and the people were kind of up in arms about it, but you know, it's hard to find a way to kind of attack that or stop that. I mean, if you meet all the qualifications to be a dwelling, you know, we don't have a maximum size you can have, and we don't have a county that says you can't have tin siding and a tin roof, and you know, we don't have a height restriction overall. We do on accessory structures, but not on your house.
I got a steel roof on my house now.
Yeah, so
So if I
you
put
know,
steel on the sides, what's the difference?
I don't think we, you know, when I had talked to Gary before about this, I said we used to catch a lot of it because it was the people wanted a house and a structure, and they wanted the other structure first, and then you would catch them on the setbacks because they were trying to squeeze it on a lot that was too small or something like that. But if people are buying 3 acres or something and wanting to put an 8,000 foot shed home in the middle of it, you know, I don't know of language in the ordinance to tell them that they can't do it. I don't know that that's what people want to see, but I don't know.
Well,
I don't know how to differentiate in the language between a shed house and a house.
Well,
You know, if you have a, like you said, if you have a development, you know, any newer development's going to have covenants that are going
Right.
to probably
We
cut back on that.
call it a shed house. I built one in 1997. It was 30 by 100,
Mm-hmm.
and it looked like a pole barn, but in
Yeah.
the front, 30 by 40 was a house, 2-story house, and it was just attached.
Mhm.
It was an attached garage as far as I was concerned, because the
Mhm.
bank didn't know how to deal with it. Nobody knew. The insurance, I got
Well,
canceled 3 times on my insurance.
That's
Just I
the
had
other
a
thing that,
commercial
you know,
building, you know,
finance and
it's
insurance
my
and stuff
house.
is
I
what
just have a
gets
big garage attached to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I looked at it, you know.
I know.
So your attached garage is different than my attached garage. That's how I look at it. And because it's metal sided on top and side, or I could have put wood siding on the sides or used shingle roof, and still would have been the same size building.
Yeah.
You know.
It just would have cost more.
Well, what you know,
You know.
right?
Yeah.
The look is everybody's got their opinions on that. So.
And I guess if you want to talk about affordable housing, it's more affordable to build that than it is.
Well, it's more efficient as far as, you
stick
know.
Oh, the
Save-
heating bill
well-
outside them shops, especially if it's inside shop, it's amazing.
Yeah. But saving the extra wall in the house, and I didn't care that it was all attached to it. It was just looked like one big long building, but,
Well, there definitely would end up being some pushback from it, certainly in the lake area. You
Right.
know.
well, we heard that.
Oh, I
that just
understand.
the people want to
Yeah.
build a garage, and the guy across the street, I don't like metal-sided buildings. Well,
You know, and
what do you
there's-
want?
that's a prime example of somebody that's stuck in an older development, and although there is some covenants, their covenants are based on things that happened in the 1950s. They're not gonna foresee things like this,
Yep.
you know, when they
Yep.
wrote those covenants.
They can update them.
Yeah,
But
that's not as
nobody
easy as you
does.
think. If they
I
didn't
know.
allow a way to update the covenants, you don't get to change it.
Nobody does.
Do you see this as becoming a problem, or what's your?
Well, it
thoughts?
can be. I mean, I'm not as concerned like we've talked here that about the individual shop homes, but when you add the second residence, and then you're talking triple the size of the accessory buildings that you're even proposing in the changes we're going to be talking about in a few minutes, then you know there may be. I can see where there could be some pushback, and and from what I've researched, I haven't found really anybody yet that deals with this. The ones that are allowing it generally are just not areas that don't really have ordinances, and they don't really follow ordinances. Brookings County just doesn't allow it. They'll allow attached with a firewall in between. That's the only way they allow that type of structure, but they don't allow detached structures like that. And so I just wanted to bring it to your attention. We have some requests right now. I need to tell these people something. I know we're in this transition period with the ordinance, and that's what makes it tough right now to tell them what to expect or whether or not, especially when they were told previously that they were given the okay to do something like this, and so
Well, I think if you can push it into the arena of an accessory building, in other words, if they're asking for a house to be built later or something,
right.
then I think you can control it, because whatever they're doing, if it's gonna meet a residence now, to get a building permit to meet a residence later, they would have to somehow, that building would have to meet an accessory building. Unless you're just gonna go with, well, I suppose if it's big enough, you can have just 2 residences on one lot and still meet all the setbacks and everything. The 1 acre one would be hard to do,
Yeah,
but the
the other
3
one's
acre
a little
above
over
would not.
3.
As far as setback, right, but I mean, as far as, what's the difference between that and if you built any buildings? Does it really matter what the building is as far as, whether it's a residence?
It does for zoning, yeah.
But I mean, as far, I guess I'm not understanding what the difference is between whether if you build a house with an attached garage and then you wanna build another house, what's the difference between that and, is it just the style of the building is the concern, or?
Well, I think it's the size more or less.
It appears to me what they're trying to do is avoid the
Yeah.
restriction on accessory
That's what it
structure
seems
sizes
to
by
be
making it another
happening.
house. That's what I think it is.
So if I wanna build say I wanna have a house and then I wanna build a 10,000 square foot shed,
Yep.
but if I attach it to my house, it's considered my attached garage.
Correct. Or if it's self-sufficient as another dwelling, then you can say that's just a second dwelling. It's not an accessory structure, and it can be any size. Instead of being 800 square foot in R3, it can be 8,000 square feet.
So when does it stop being a house and turn into a shed?
Well, my guess would be when it doesn't have technically living quarters. You gotta have
But they do, though, right?
sanitation
I mean-
and all that stuff, and if
Well,
they do.
I think there's probably 2 issues. One, do we want to even address a shouse? Do we want to limit people, or do we want to say build whatever you want? That's one issue. And then the second issue is what's happening is we had a gentleman in here the other day. Was that at this meeting, or was that at the Board of Adjustment?
Board of Adjustment.
In the Board of Adjustment. So he was. Oh, that was in here.
It was in here, if you're talking about the
Oh,
shrimp.
the young
Shrimp
man, yeah,
was in
that was
here.
last month's meeting, yes.
And he wasn't necessarily, he was kind of sounded like guided or directed to do this, but what people do is well, I wanna build a house 5-10 years from now, but I want a place to store all my stuff. So you can't have an accessory structure without a primary structure. So what they're saying is they'll go build a shed and put a toilet in
Living
it
quarters in it.
and a microwave, and they'll say, oh, this is a house. And then 10 years from now they wanna say, well, no, it's not a house, this is now a shed, and now this is my house. And that's probably the issue that I think we need to address is, once you declare that this is a house or your
Yeah,
home,
right.
that's a house then.
Well,
And
sure.
if you wanna build a second home, then that's a whole new process.
And you can't even get a
Then you gotta
conditional
have a
use
CUP.
at that point, possibly even.
The grants, that the CUP.
Well, doesn't that just make sense though? I mean, if you follow the house now, you can't change your mind later.
But that's what they've been directed in the past to do, is say, well, technically you can, if someone questions you, you can be a house, because you've got a kitchenette in here.
Okay, well, you're a house, and you're taxed as a house, you're a house, you have a residence, you have a 911.
They don't get taxed as a house.
Well, they should, why not? If it's a house,
Right.
if it's,
It's a
I don't
house.
understand, once you say it's a house in this department, it should transfer to all the other departments in the building, and
It
that's
should.
a house.
It should.
Well,
Well, I think-
it should, how can it
When,
not?
when it gets equalized, they also have to
How
look
about
at similar properties and how do you
Bob
value
built
it,
that
similar
That
properties.
house in his shed 15 years ago, 20 years ago. He's been living in that, got a beautiful house inside that shed. Wonder how that's taxed.
I think the intent
that's
of what they.
probably
Mine was taxed just like a regular house with an attached garage.
Right.
The intent of what they were doing was making sure that if the house didn't get built, that the shed met the requirements for a house if it stood alone later
Sure.
in time. That was, I think, the idea, and it kind of backfired.
Playing both sides of the fence, it's
Yeah.
kind of what's going on.
And I don't know how, I don't know that it's something we want to, that we want, but I don't know that it's something we have a lot of ability to stop.
I think when we get this accessory structure stuff cleaned up at the ordinance, that might eliminate a lot of this too, where the people who are going against the grain and trying to build a bigger accessory than they're allowed, that will eliminate that. Not everybody, but I think the vast majority of those, so.
To answer your question, how it's I mean, I guess I don't know how in-depth it's been checked in the past, but okay, let's say I had 5 acres and I came in and wanted a building permit, came into the office and wanted a building permit. They said, well, you can't, because you need a house first. I want to build a shed, you need a house first. I said, well, I'm gonna make my shed my house. Okay, here's your building permit. And then if I came in 5 years later and said, I want to build a house on this property, I don't know if there would be if there's any checks to say there's already a home. You might pull up an aerial and say, well, there's already a shed on here.
So there's no,
It might be coded, I don't know.
I don't think so.
there's no way to tell whether there's a house on a that there's a residence there?
Well, the way,
On the taxes it does, it'll have occupied ag, at least on mine.
Right.
It's got to be occupied though for that to happen. Somebody
Right.
would have to be there.
And that-
Just because a person puts a living quarters in his shed doesn't mean that,
I don't know how
like
city
Mr.
taxes
Trimp, he
are.
ain't actually living in there. He doesn't,
Well, whether you live there or not, if you build a house
Yeah.
with an attached garage, that's how I'm gonna keep calling
Yeah.
it. Once, whether you live there or not, it's a house,
You're gonna be taxed
you're gonna
on
be
it.
taxed on it as a residence. Whether you live there or not, right? I mean, if I move out of my house, I'm still gonna get the same tax bill. If my house is sitting there the way it is right now, and just because I don't live there, I'm still gonna get a tax bill the same way, right?
Absolutely.
I just don't think I don't think the equalization is
How
gonna
does
go
that
out and
flow over to equalization? 'Cause
look
it
at a
should
shed
go
and make it a
from
house.
A building permit.
No, I don't know.
Well, the building permit should
any
say house
building
on it,
permit,
right?
When I built my
the
new shop, they
equalization,
go
that's
out and
what
look at
check
it.
out.
Yeah, I've already been,
So-
I've got a building permit for a
And I
shed,
mean,
and they've already come out once to look and see if I built it
Our future
yet.
goal is to
Oh, yeah,
create
because they'll get it on
spreadsheets
next year's
that,
docket.
with the
It's not the end of the
approvals
year
of
yet.
certain things, so if you have a check.
I had
you
6
can
months, they
check
were there 2
that
months after I got
to
the
see
permit,
if
see if I
there was
started.
Building permit, because they look at the building.
But in
permits
the
and
interest
You know,
of
old
taxes
shop
for the
that was
county,
built, but-
if he builds a house and then he turns it into his garage, and then he builds a great big fancy house, we get more tax money.
Yeah, and then you come in for a CUP for 2 dwellings.
So you get a fee as well.
So I just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if we're gonna have an answer, but something to think about when as we're redoing working on the ordinance and things too. And
Add it to the list.
lastly, I just passed out a conditional use checklist, something that you can take a look at, or if it's something you think would, just basically like you did tonight, just to reaffirm that we need to go through certain specific items each time we have a CUP to discuss, and if it's worth adopting next month, we can do that. If you feel it wasn't necessary, we can certainly disregard, but it was just something that, you know, we thought maybe this would be a good idea just to remind everybody of what the process is to go through CUPs. So.
I think it's important to treat all of them the same. You know, we have CUPs that are easy and there's nothing to go through. And then we have ones that are a lot tougher, and we should be treating them all the same, going through each and every one of them, you know, according to 1805, so a variance as well.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of it, and it's been on my list of trying to get better at going through, and I do appreciate you holding us to that tonight. It was long and tedious, but that's what I've been trying to work to, especially 1805. Yeah, whether it's a nuclear power plant or a lollipop factory, really should go through everything.
Well, you know, and I tend to get a little excited when I'm trying to get my point across, but because to me, it's just second nature to start at the top and go to the bottom. I understand when you see that the end's going to be, maybe this is in a tower's case, right? This is a simple little tower, right? No big deal. But if we don't treat them all the same, then whether it's a tower, cave fall, a shed, or whatever, shouse, or whatever, you know, a fireworks stand, I don't know, everything it's got to be the same, because we're not in a society anymore where people forget and they don't hold you for what you've done in the past. They do. So if they say, well, you let the other guy go, you didn't go through all this, it's just going to be an issue. That's why we have lawyers. We have to have lawyers come and sit with us, because everything gets litigated. If the other side doesn't get what they want, then it gets litigated. And if we don't protect the county from that, then we're not doing our job. So this is great. I think we should have a whole stack of these for about everything that we do, because it makes it so much simpler and quicker and easier for everybody. Us, the applicant, you know, in the interest of time and efficiency and everything else. Yeah, this is great. I think that's great.
And that's
Did you want to go
one
over
thing, not
the
to continue to harp on it, but one of the things when we're making changes to the ordinance,
Just what's happening.
things that are unnecessary, I would like to see gone. Because I think we do need to go through all these things, but some of them is like, well, why are we even wasting our time on that?
Just briefly, before we go into any discussion on ordinance changes, just wanted to let everybody know, give you an update that there's possibly going to be a challenge made to the 2006 amendments of the ordinance, that it's invalid, and so that we may have to re-adopt the current ordinance as it stands and have to wait until after that whole process before we can make any amendments. So it could be a few months before we're actually able to move forward and make some of these changes that we're discussing in the ordinance. So just wanted to give you an update.
Good thought.
So why would a challenge to the 2006 ordinance impact what we're doing today?
Because in 2003, in 2006, when you added the Class Fs to the CAFOs, that wasn't in the ordinance previously. They could have just gotten a permit in 2003 to do that.
What we need to do is get, if this ordinance is found to be invalid, we need to get this ordinance back as we've been using it for the past 13 years.
Now, the only parts that could be found invalid were the changes that took place in
Anything
2006.
and anything subsequent that would be directly tied to that, which I don't know that there was.
Yeah, it would have to be tied to those changes.
And it was based on not finding a notification notice.
Of the planning commission.
Right. But if we were to start over with this, if we start making changes and then that's found to be invalid and then we gotta incorporate those, it just gets muddy, so.
When will we know that?
Could be months.
No, when will we know whether we have to, no. It's
Well, as of
in-
yesterday, we were told that it still hasn't gotten a court date, so.
You gotta go to court first.
Until then, we just keep plugging away. Does that mean that things we're doing right now could be considered invalid?
Well, that's why he's saying we're gonna have to hold back. We can work on the language, but we can't necessarily, some of the zoning ordinance stuff that we've approved, if we go through and adopt it and it gets referred, it may just invalidate everything we've done.
Well, but, I mean,
you
people on
talking
the
permits
agenda,
and things?
I'm talking about everything. Does that affect, like, anything that we've done tonight? If-
No,
Oh,
no, only that section of the
Well,
ordinance.
We don't believe it will.
okay. The whole thing's not gonna get thrown out.
No.
But we don't know what parts maybe are in
Right.
jeopardy.
Not sure.
Our
I
towers,
wish we had more.
our towers in jeopardy, so that if we approve a tower,
Actually, that's possible,
well, that's what,
because that was 2009, so.
well, that's what I'm getting at, is what parts,
Our state's attorney, and he's gone, but he advised us that the ordinance is still
Motion
valid.
to adjourn?
Just keep going.
You guys duck off.
Second.
we have anything else we need to talk about?
All those in favor?
I got 9:30 this morning, it's been a long day.